Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome members of public, both present and online. Go ahead and call the meetings to order. June meeting of the Applied Electric Association. And let's go ahead and start off our meeting as we normally do with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Let's see. Let's address our agenda for the day. You all have the published agenda. Are there any changes or modifications or comments on that agenda? I see Tim.
So I'd like to add to executive session just an update to the fast track.
Update to fast track during executive session. Okay. Any objections to adding that into executive session? Okay, then we will add that as a section E in executive session. Any other modifications to today's agenda? Okay, seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not paying attention. Rachel, I see your hand. Sorry.
Buongiorno. Could I pull out policy 102 from the consent board items?
Yes. Yeah, do we need discussion on that?
I just have a couple quick questions. Thank you.
If they're Rachel, if they're clarifying questions, we could probably address them if you don't think we need board action. And you're totally your call.
Let's just pull it out for a hot second in case there is anything.
Understood. Okay, so Rachel's requested that we take item F out of the consent board and address it separately. So we'll do that. So now we have the consent board items A through E. I saw Kohler maybe looking to make the motion. Graham.
I think we need the motion to, since we need
So we haven't
to approve the amended agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, Kohler moves to approve the amended agenda. Second. We got Tim as a second. Any more discussion on the amended agenda? All right, all in favor of that amended agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that was unanimous. So we have an agenda. All right, yeah, no, we kind of jumped ahead to that consent board stuff. Rachel, bring that up again in a moment when we get to consent board and we'll pull it. So we have an agenda. Next item on the agenda, safety moment. So I'll go ahead and give that for today. We, as probably everybody sees in the news, fortunately not in our local news, we are now in fire season. We've been somewhat fortunate to have some rainstorms, clap, clap, yay, but that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. So obviously, LPEA does a lot of work on fire mitigation. We talk about this regularly, and we greatly appreciate that work. We all, as community members, have a responsibility as well. So I'm just reminding everybody to use all the caution that we know we need to use while we're out there in the woods. What Smokey the Bear says, only you can prevent forest fires. So let's do the best we can on that and try to keep our whole community safe.
Thank you.
Let's see, on to section 2 of the agenda, which is member comment and concern. Graham, could you give us a preamble for that?
Yes. The board encourages comments about the cooperative from its members. The board will take all member comments under consideration, but may not provide a response during the member comment period. Board asks that each participant's comment pertain to cooperative business. Those wanting to address the board during the public comment period are granted 5 minutes to address their topics. Lengthy comments to the board should be submitted in writing. Formal complaints must be filed in writing and submitted in compliance with applicable board policy. Comments from the public will be directed to the entire board and not to any individual. No personal attacks shall be allowed. Failure to follow these requirements may cause the public comment period to be terminated. Copies of our cooperative policies and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available on the cooperative website.
Thanks, Graham. Just before we move into that, I have also been remiss in not pointing out a conspicuous absence. Our fearless leader, CEO Hansen, is not with us today. He intended to be able to Zoom in, but he is traveling internationally, and I believe he's in the air and not on the ground. So Chris won't be with us today, and he has passed the torch of doing those CEO responsibilities in this meeting to Graham and staff. So there will be places where Graham and the rest of staff are filling in for CEO Hansen. So I just wanted to make sure people realize why there was no chair in the middle here. On to member comments. So we have members in the room that if anybody would like to comment, throw your hand up and I'll bring you up to the mic and go ahead.
All right. My name's Emily. I'm living down in District 3, and I just want to say first congratulations to the new and re-elected board members. And I also really want to take a moment and thank past board members for their work and for making the greatest stride thus far in benefiting LPEA members, which is leaving to Tri-State and their debt and securing new interim power supplier at a cheaper rate. So thanks to the past board for that. And I'm really excited for this first session with the new board. The goal of my comment here is just to encourage the new board members and old to continue to listen to the membership and keep LPEA on the path towards renewable and sustainable energy. Southwest Colorado is experiencing rapid warming and some of the most severe climate effects in the state. We were just talking about fire season here, and that's only growing more dangerous. The top source of our greenhouse gas emissions for many of us is where we get our power from, which is LPEA. And so LPEA decisions have a direct impact on all of our climate emissions. On top of that, LPEA's decisions have a direct impact on our pocketbook. And after decades of being locked into a contract with a really poor business partner who's very in debt, I'm really excited about LPEA's new energy future. Back in the fall, LPEA did conduct a focus group. If you haven't looked into that, I really recommend you do. Members and our priorities for the future. And that focus group, which was all of LPEA territory, came out that the environmentally friendly and sustainability is the top member priority. So please consider the member priorities. Look into that focus group and read that study. So that was what came out as a top membership priority. So I encourage you all to, old and new board members alike, to kind of keep that priority and keep our membership in mind as you make future decisions. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, yeah. Give us your name and sort of where you are in the district.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Dave Peters and I'm an LPEA member in District 3. So there's many more LPEA members paying attention to LPEA now than about 4 months ago. They're not too happy. Members are concerned at the amount of debt LPEA will incur with the Tri-State buyout. Pretty upset that they don't get to vote. They didn't get to vote on the biggest financial decision in the history of LPEA. They're pretty shocked at the big salary that CEO and top managers make, plus LPEA directors getting paid $1,200 for each meeting they attend. They're frustrated by what little financial information the LPEA provides as compared to the past. They're upset that the LPEA board resisted members' attempts to change the bylaws on 2 different occasions. So I think it's a good thing that members are paying more attention and the numbers will keep growing. I welcome the new directors and hope the incumbent directors and top LPEA management will treat them with respect. I've talked to several past rural directors from LPEA, and those directors said that they were both bullied and even threatened. Further, they were largely passed over for committee assignments. I hope this doesn't continue. You know, when LPEA was founded, the purpose was to help rural customers, and they did a good job up until about 5 years ago. It now seems that the LPEA mission is to serve the agenda of some directors, and if staff doesn't get in line with their agenda, look out. Chris stated at the annual meeting that he wanted to hear from members. Members have been speaking but LPEA is not listening. We've asked for all meetings to be in person and have that option, but we continue to see every other meeting is by Zoom only. We've asked for a town hall meeting to explain and answer questions and concern about the buyout. But we continue to just have coffee with Chris and not a major town hall. Members have asked about the fast track sale, and we were told by Tim Wheeler that that information was confidential. How are the members able to determine if LPEA followed the bylaws if you don't give us the information? Members are also concerned about consumer protections. Right now, the Colorado PUC has very little oversight over LPEA. There is an LPEA policy that states if you have complaints about rates, you cannot file a lawsuit or go to the Colorado PUC until you first file a complaint to the LPEA Executive Board. The LPEA Board is the body that approves general rates and possibly special classes of rates. That presents a problem of potential bias, which may not protect the consumer. LPEA really doesn't feel like a co-op anymore. It feels more like a dictatorship. It seems that the only time the LPEA board and management will listen is if they're in court. Again, I hope the directors will treat the new directors with respect. If you don't, then very likely you'll see recalls. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Anybody else in the room with comments today? Come on up, stand up.
Joe Ruggles, District 4. I'd like to again kind of rehash our conversation I had with the attorney wherever he's at. I won't see him today, but
Me?
oh,
Probably not.
now we got right next to you. That we had the annual meeting, and that is that Tri-State's website says we are a member-owned co-op. Glide Electric's a member-owned co-op. If you look at the definition of a co-op, Wikipedia or any of those, it's a member-owned organization. So now you're going and you're buying out of Tri-State, and your bylaws state that you can't sell more than 10% of the assets without a member vote. Just because your name ain't on some asset don't mean you don't own it. That happens all over the country. Corporations or everything else. I'm asking Tri-State, have a vote, get that off the table, follow your bylaws. You're member owned. Tri-State's member owned. And your bylaws doesn't say net present value or anything of that nature. It says assets. So I'm asking you to have a member vote to exit Tri-State. All your friends in Durango is going to vote this in, but at least you follow the bylaws and build some credibility. And I encourage the board to look at yesterday's county commissioners meeting and look at Dan and Ted's testimony. I think it'd be quite telling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruggles. Anybody else in the room before we go online? Yes, please.
My name is Melissa Ray, and I live in Durango. And just want to say that I started lobbying LPEA for distribution of renewable energy starting in 2005, when this was a dictatorship under Gray Monroe, and have worked diligently for many, many years, sitting in this boardroom, listening to discussions about policy and making comments, and until we were able to elect a board that listened to us and a CEO that directed us in the direction of buying and distributing renewable energy to its members. And I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And the board made the decision to exit Tri-State. I think it's the best decision that could have ever been made. I support it to this day, and I certainly hope that youth of law, and particularly those new members who don't have this history, understand the importance of the distribution of renewable energy to its members, and how many of us are totally in favor of that. Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here. Yes, in the back.
My name is Michael Morvan. I live up near the college. I'm not sure what district that is. My question to the board and to your, I've been out of the country for some time, has the moratorium areas been diminished for pretty connecting private homes to the grid?
All right, we'll hold that. Typically, we don't do Q&A during member comment, so let's get through the rest. But certainly we'll address that question with you individually later if needed. But that's just part of our protocol is we don't do Q&A during.
It's my first visit.
No problem. Thank you for being here, and thanks for bringing up the issue as a whole. And you will be aware of an answer. Anyone else in the room? Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Werner Heiber, and I am in District 3. I have 4 comments. LPEA and Tri-State, as Lisa pointed out, this has been going on for 20 years. Before we left Tri-State, other co-ops left. Delta Montrose left, with a very conservative, much more conservative ideology. Co-op, because the Tri-State served their own interests and not the interests of co-ops. And regarding salaries, they're supporting probably a $5 million salary for the CEO, maybe $20 million for their top executive level, a private plane, the 5% limitation that existed for many years. So it is important to know the history, what has happened over 20 years and why LPEA is leaving. The next one is affordability. I'm very well aware that people are struggling. I worked for 4 years for Colorado Housing Incorporated, running it for a year and a half, and we built houses for $130,000 with the land, 12 to 1,300 square foot houses. So I know these issues. So I really congratulate LPEA for having not raised its rate for 5 years, and maybe even longer. For that, despite that now we increased by 7.7%, despite an increase by Tri-State last year by over 6%. That means we had our rates increased a little bit over 1% over 5 years, while inflation over that same period was 30%, and parts went up even more. So I really congratulate the staff for what you have done in keeping rates low. The last one is climate change is an issue for me. It's real, and so it's mounting costs. That's where we need to beat up upbeat information. What is possible? You are doing this here at Tri-State, but here's at LPEA. But here's a little comment. In March 2025, fossil fuels accounted for less than 50% of electricity generated for the first month on record. This is actually the first time that ever happened. In wind, solar, it made up about 25%, hydro and nuclear the remainder. And the reason why the shift to wind and solar is happening is because it's less expensive. On top of climate change, And maybe for what those who are still doubt about climate change, the last time we were at 400 ppm, we are at 450 now. Carbon dioxide. Sea levels were 50 to 80 feet higher. Miami, New York City, all these coastal cities will be on the wall. Just imagine the cost, the long-term cost of dealing with and the migration that's gonna happen. Lastly, I want to congratulate to the new board members that are elected. The co-op is an outstanding organization. I feel very well informed by the co-op. It takes a little attention and maybe attending things. But I also want to congratulate John Mitchell because he overcame an advertising and money blitz by the Durango Mountain Resort. So John is not here, but thank you, John. He knocked on many doors, but that's an outstanding effort. But keep in mind that race was closed because of the Durango Mountain Resort. So thanks a lot. And again, I really appreciate all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Werner. Director Mitchell is online with us today. So,
Hi, thank you for the comment.
yeah, there's John. All right, last call in the room, because Andrew online's been patient. All right, can we give Andrew the mic? Go ahead, Andrew. Tell us your name and where you are in LPEA territory. Can't hear you yet. Still can't hear you, Andrew. I have one more hand. I'm going to go to Brian first, but Andrew, we will come back to you. Pass the mic over to Brian.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Brian.
Awesome. My name is Brian Rogers. I'm calling from District 3. Congratulations to the returning board members and new board members. And on switching over to the ability to vote online and having such a great voter turnout for this type of election. First, I want to say I've been very impressed by Chris Hansen and his ability to speak publicly and handle challenging questions. His ability to, at the annual meeting, I was impressed in seeing him in different situations. So I want to congratulate you on that hire. I also want to reiterate the foresight of leaving Tri-State for the financial health of our members, as they were continuing to make what could be seen as financially irresponsible decisions and straddling our members with even more debt. I think when people read the headlines about exiting the contract and see that number, they don't understand the full complexity of Tri-State's financial statements, and the growing liabilities that they have could easily be missed. Each year we would have stayed with Tri-State, we would have been responsible for even more debt. And I think that would be an irresponsible decision by our leadership. So thank you for making that challenging decision, because it's can be seen as unpopular for people who aren't able to know the full financial situation of Tri-State. I think keeping that in mind, we're going through an energy transition and the landscape is changing. Having LPEA constrained by a 5% cap of supplying local energy is not very, that's just not good for our community and members. Being able to move away from that allows us to actually invest more in our community and local energy sources, allowing LPEA to stimulate jobs here locally, and also allows for us to go to the public market as a consumer to find more competitive pricing. I want to say congratulations on finding a portion of our power supply at 10% lower rates. I think that shows the ability to go to market and enjoy the benefits of some of these capital markets that allow, full competitive consumers to take on more cost savings. I know that a lot of our base at LPEA is looking forward to learning about how more of these decisions can incorporate renewable power sources. So I urge you to continue to keep that in mind and know that that's a big portion of your member base cares about those renewable energy sources and how you're going to invest in our communities. Thank you very much and appreciate the time.
Thank you also, Brian. Thank you for participating today. We could try and loop back to Andrew again if you're still there. Put your hand up and we'll try and get you in the meeting. If not, Andrew, please, we don't want to miss out on anyone's questions or comments. So please feel free to email either info@lpea.coop or any of the board members, and we'll get your comment on the record or your question answered. All right, I don't see any more hands. Last call in the room. I think we got everybody that wanted to comment. Okay, then we'll go ahead and close out member comment for now. Let's see. I did get word that we are. Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly. Sorry, I closed it too quickly. You have the floor, Kelly.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if it just would automatically show up, but yeah, I had some comments. My name's Kelly Haggerty. I live in District 4. I have spoke at your meeting, I think once before, and attended the annual meeting. What I've heard from a lot of members, like at the annual meeting, at the coffee talks, is they want real numbers in order to understand the real impacts, how things will actually affect their rates. And I appreciate where everybody. Oh, and let me also welcome those new directors. I think we saw great turnout in the election. I think we saw a lot of excitement and a lot of enthusiasm, but I think what that represents is you have people that really care and they want these new board members to speak for them. So I do hope that they get meaningful committee work. But I think what's on people's minds is always, how is this going to affect my electric rates, right? So if you have rising admin, rising consulting, and you realize now that we're leaving Tri-State, we have to do a lot of either in-house, expertise, or we have to hire it out for consulting fees. So our expenses are going to continue to increase, and then our income, of course, going down. We're not necessarily increasing meter numbers. So ratepayers are not increasing to meet those costs. We do have a very high level of pay for our CEO, and more than a dozen staff members have a very comfortable six-figure salary. I don't deny anyone making good money. But those are more commensurate, though, with private sector type industries. We are a member-owned nonprofit, and now we're looking at a $209 million buyout. And then we still need to fund what we're talking about, major energy projects for local renewables. I think those top salaries could wait. We have to figure out how to budget that in. The 2024, thank you, it's up online. I saw that annual report, but it doesn't really talk about a plan for managing price volatility with CREA. And there's no mention of the actual numbers of where we're going to afford the $209 million buyout for loan. Is it loans? Is it bonds? Is it rate hikes? Really, ultimately, this is all coming down to rate hikes for ratepayers. And I'd like realistic talk about, I hear about Sunnyside solar expansion, et cetera. That's maybe 2,000 homes, 2,500 homes. It's going to take years and many tens of millions of dollars to afford local renewables at the scale that you're talking. So those real numbers, real costs, and real bottom line to people's rates, that needs to be brought out. So I would think it would be, I'm at my desk right now. People don't have time to come into these meetings. We certainly don't have time. And so, and really, I appreciate all 12 of you guys give your time, a very long time, I might say, because these meetings are long, but you give your time, and I do appreciate that. But in general, the public is just sitting out there without the real facts. So I would love if you could publicly put a summary of your admin, your executive, your consulting expenses over the last 3 years, along with a true financial projection for 2025, 2026. Include how we're paying out the $209 million buyout, how we're going to fund these future generation projects. Where is this coming from? And then just giving these real numbers to people, I think it will help them understand the real impact.
Sure.
Difficulty online.
Oh, did I cut out?
I think we cut out. I think
we
Oh.
have technical.
I know, I only see John, Mitchell, and Rachel. I only see two people. Well,
So
anyway,
here we are.
yeah, but thank you for your time. Again, just asking for real, very, very tangible, because we don't, as the public, we do not have time that we're giving you. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, appreciate that, Kelly. I did see one more hand up, and we have 5 more minutes in member comments, so let's give us a second here. And yeah, Nancy, we're going to try and give you the floor here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm,
Nancy, go ahead.
was I able to unmute successfully?
Yeah, we've got you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to bring up one topic that I'm been doing a deep dive in, and I'm hoping that LPEA will as well. The power industry has sort of been neglecting this aspect, but as we're moving into more of the renewable energies, it's something that we really have to consider, because it's super harmonics, dirty electricity, transients. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but I'm going to send a link to you by, it's an industry article on super harmonics, an emerging threat to grid resiliency. Local power distribution networks see an increase in conducted emissions that can compromise our power supply system, bring visibility and control to the problem. So these super harmonics are in the 2 to 150 kilohertz frequencies, and they cause a lot of problems within the grid. And some of the contributors to these frequencies are solar panels, wind turbines, battery storage, EV charging depots, and more. So anything that has switch mode power supplies, switching back and forth between DC and AC, will cause this. And our meters, our CREA meters, are in this category, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that maybe there's some way that we can ameliorate these issues, because they not only cause problems within electronics and on the grid, such as overheating capacitors. They cause audible noise, light flicker, tripping of low voltage residual current devices downstream. They compromise energy meter readings. They interfere in power line communications. Fortunately, we don't have that. But there are some of the common superharmonic effects on sensitive electronics. I've had friends who have lost thousands of dollars worth of electronics due to these superharmonics or transients, the dirty electricity flowing along in their wiring in their homes. So premature failing of data center computers, reduced lifespan of LED lighting and other equipment, interruptions in domestic appliances, medical equipment, semiconductor manufacturing equipment. There's thermal stress on connected equipment, insulation breakdown on cables. So these these are causing problems. Yes, yes. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention to the time, but
Yeah, you're close.
I will. So they're causing interference in the grid and on everything that's connected to it. But the other thing is they are causing interference in the bioelectricity in living bodies, including the humans. So I'm a representative for those of us who are members with sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, including this dirty electricity that comes into the rooms via the wiring. So I'm asking that LPEA do a deep dive with those of us who are electromagnetically sensitive and those of us who are experts in this field. I work nationally and actually internationally with experts, scientists, doctors. And
over time.
so I'm asking LPEA to meet with us, do some kind of a learning session so that we can get a hold of this problem as we're moving more into this kind of energy. And so we're not creating chronic illness or injuries for people. So I hope you.
Okay, Nancy, I gotta cut you off. You're way over time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that technical topic up to us today. Okay, we're closing out member comment now. And as we move on, I did get word that Dan would like to provide a brief update to the comment that Mr. Moravant had about the LPEA's progress on what we call the solar red zones and how we're moving forward on that. So we'll give Dan a couple minutes to address that.
Yeah, Mike, we've been working through our litigation plan on that, trying to address both on a global perspective and more of a feeder by feeder perspective. We've been working very closely with NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratories, in determining some of the root causes and issues that we need to pay close attention to. And basically where we're at right now is we do allow non-export. We have created a battery incentive program for pay extra incentive for folks to put batteries in that will create the more daytime load that we need to absorb this. The issue is the reverse power flow through the feeders, through the transformers. And we just have to have more load in these areas to allow that to happen. The other thing we're doing is if it's only one feeder that's back feeding instead of the whole substation, then we are putting specialized voltage regulators out there to be able to allow bidirectional flow on a feeder. So we're doing the engineering design on that this year for implementation next year on those. And I guess one more thing are the flexible interconnections. There's technology coming up pretty soon on the inverters that will allow export of power when power can be exported, but otherwise it'll restrain it when a condition exists in the system, such as the reverse power flow at substation. Bottom line is the daytime load can net in many areas of our system. And so we're just trying to work through making sure our equipment stays in good shape. Reverse power flow through transformers degrades lifetime by 25%. So we've got to watch these kind of things, make sure they.
Okay, thank you. We can't do, sorry, Michael, you have to take it up with Dan offline. Okay, I think we still have a little technical problem. I'm just going to check in with someone online. Wicho, can you still hear us okay?
Yep, looking good.
Okay. And our video appears to be frozen. Is that the same for you? I see Rachel nodding yes.
It's okay.
Well,
We get the voice.
Yeah.
The voice is coming through loud and clear. I think we can move forward without delay.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right. So we're moving on to consent board items. Per Rachel's request, we're going to remove item F, which is amendments to policy 102, and discuss that separately. Tim.
So before we go on, I just would like to know if at least the voice is being recorded for this meeting, so you don't have video, because members rely on that. Maybe?
It is. We need to swap that camera out. Do you want us to do it now?
Yeah, if it's not functioning, let's just jump in and unplug it. But I think we'll just go ahead and that doesn't affect our audio, does it?
It will.
Oh, it will. Okay. Well, then we're gonna take a short break. Hey, everybody, looks like we're coming back online, so let's settle back in. See ya. All right. Does it feel like we're back in?
One more second.
Okay, one more second. Not rushing you. I appreciate the help. It's always stressful to pivot midstream. That's right. We have all the virtual attendees, just not the.
Maybe the new Hawaii's church here.
Yeah. All right. We've got the wise old owl booted up and yeah, let's move ahead with the agenda. We are on consent board items. Rachel has requested that we remove item F. So at this point, we are ready for a motion to approve the rest of the consent board items.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Kohler and Nicole with the second. Any discussion on look at consent board items A through E? Okay, then all in favor of approving consent board items A through E, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? All right.
No, it's going on. We're good.
We're still recording. Good deal. Okay, and consent board items A through E passed. Let's take up questions on consent board item F, amendments to policy 102. Rachel, you have the floor on that. What kind of questions did you have?
Thank you. Yeah, I was it's a question regarding policy 102, section B, item 14. And in reading the red line comments, there was just some back and forth conversation seeking clarity on how agenda items get put onto an agenda. And then in the cleaned up version, the changes that have been made simply state a majority of the board may vote to amend the agenda at the meeting. And so I guess we can seeking clarification because I'm not sure if it addressed the question that was being put forward. So we can vote to amend an agenda date of, and that's my understanding what that final sentence means. Is that correct?
I believe that to be true. Graham?
Yeah, so procedurally, the authority to set the agenda is delegated permanently to the CEO and the president of the board of directors. So if for some reason, if a director's first step would be to present something that they would like on the board to the president and the CEO. And if for some reason the president and CEO reject adding that to the agenda, then the majority of the board can override that quote unquote veto by moving to amend the agenda at the meeting. That is the procedure that would be in place.
So it can only be done for day of items, or is this saying we could make that motion to add something to the agenda? Let's say we do it today and it would be for the July agenda.
I think that that is a sort of similar question that I think the board can have the authority to sort of place something on a future agenda if you want. So if you voted and say, we want to consider this at the September meeting, then, and the board and the majority of the board voted to that, then the CEO and the president of the board would not be able to override that action by the board.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question, and I don't have any challenge to policy 102. So I move that we vote to approve the policy 102 revisions as they are presented.
Second. Motion by Rachel, second by Tim. Any other discussion before we move to vote on the approval of the amendments to policy 102? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of that approval, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All right, unanimous. Okay, thanks. That gets us through consent board items. That gets us to section 4 of the agenda, election of elections, election of officers, election of directors to Roundup Board, and election of delegates and alternates to CREA, Western United, and the Tri-State Monitoring Position. As we've done in the past, but the new board members follow along here, we'll go down through President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer in Section A, and then we'll move into Section B, which is the Roundup, and then Section C. So let's kick this off. Election of officers. We'll start with the President, and I will take either nominations or self-nominations. And I guess help me out here, Graham. When we get a nomination, we need a second for that nomination.
No, typically, no, we don't need a second, but we do typically ask if the person will accept the nomination.
Right.
So, we don't want to sort of, if somebody's not interested in filling the position, don't put them on the ballot.
Right.
But, and then also, because these are secret ballots, you also can vote for whomever you want, whether they're nominated or not. But we typically try to use this period to make it clear who has interest in any position.
Right, so then maybe help us out a little bit more too. Procedurally, you have ballots in front of you. They should be sort of labeled appropriately. When we ask for the vote on that, like Graham said, you can either vote for one of the nominated people or anybody that, writing candidate, as they say. And then we'll collect those ballots. Board members on Zoom we've addressed this with them, and they'll be texting their secret ballot directly to Graham. So it will remain secret. That's our process. Any questions about that process and how we move through this, just so we can sure everyone's clear? Okay, then back into nomination or self-nominations.
Just clarification.
Sure.
And then, after we do elections, then the committee chair appoints members of that committee.
Yeah, good point, right? So we're only electing, as it pertains to that topic, President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer. Policy states that the secretary will be the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, and
It says that the secretary is the ex officio chair of the Committee on Policies, and that the treasurer is the ex officio chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. And then the remaining members of those committees are appointed by the president.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up. So that's how the rest of those committees get populated going forward. All right, open for nominations. Go ahead, David.
I'd like to nominate Nicole Pitcher, director, for the president position.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, would you accept that nomination? Yeah. Great. Any other nominations for the position of president? Right, then we can review this by, still secret out, right? Because there's write-in possibilities. Okay, Nicole, you want to make any comments before we vote?
No, I'll say it clearly.
Okay.
Sing for your acceptance speech. In case.
Can we ask things of our candidates?
Yeah, that would be appropriate, Rachel.
Even though we have one for this one, but to your point, maybe people are writing in. I'm just curious, if you're in this position, Nicole, how would you address some of the board priorities that we've discussed over the last year, including member engagement, the potential of bringing back strategic planning, and potentially board evaluation?
Thanks for the question, Rachel. I think, one of the things I've been able to speak to everyone on the board, except Bradley. Sorry, I didn't get to you before. But I've gotten a lot of interest, not unanimous, but a lot of interest in those exact topics that you brought up. And that the idea of needing to have a space where directors can be really strategic, where it's not just for us to take a vote, it's for us to, kind of get messy in strategic thinking about the direction for LPEA, and that we'd like to, previously been called Committee of the Wholes, maybe rebrand that as work sessions. Because I think a lot of the things you mentioned, Rachel, are sort of half done. Everything that you mentioned is like, even our strategic plan, we half revised it. you've taken the lead on community engagement. You've gotten us to a pretty organized place that we just need to take action on. But I think having regularly scheduled work sessions, that would be the place to take up those issues you brought up.
Thanks. Any other questions for our presidential candidate? All right, then please fill out your ballot. Yeah. With a collector.
Yeah, the basket is going around.
Oh, basket's coming around. That works. It's a DIY before the backup.
The peach basket, like, they just ask.
Ash the bucket.
I'm gonna take it out to him.
Thank you.
I can.
I used to do this at church all the time.
Trying to check.
Jam my checks in there.
All right. Brad has retired to the secret ballot counting room. We hope we don't see any smoke coming out of that.
It's just. It's a Medusa thing.
It's unanimous. Nicole is our new president. Congratulations.
Thanks for your willingness to do this, and would you like to take my chair?
Sure.
Wow, effective immediately. That's your gavel, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay. Well, and thank you everyone for electing me to be your president. It's an honor to serve in this role, and I'm excited for the challenge. And I have the leadership skills that we need right now in this moment. I'm a good communicator. I listen well, and I'm very open to taking advice. I also am, I'm extremely organized. I get things done, and also in the vein of communication, I think that I can go out to our members and to the public at large and speak well with the one voice policy of our board. So I'm excited to be working with this CEO, this board, and our members, our leadership team at this pivotal moment for the Plata Electric. Go ahead, Derek.
I ask that you raise the volume of your voice.
Why, yes, I can do that.
Because I think it gets hard to hear from you. You
Okay.
have a very lovely voice, but it's low.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. So I guess we'll just move right into the next position for election, which is vice president. Do we have any nominations for vice president?
Tim.
Go ahead, Tim.
I'll nominate Ted if he's willing.
Okay, Ted, are you willing?
Thank you, Tim. I am willing.
Okay, any other nominations for vice president? Questions? Questions?
Why?
Yeah, it's, to start with, it was a hard decision to step down from the president role. I very, very much enjoyed that work and that hard work, and the increased interaction with staff, but primarily with CEO Hansen. And I think we forged a great initial path. Really proud of the work I was able to do with all of you in that role. And so I think you can imagine that it's hard to step away from that. And so partially I want to still be involved. And then also I think there is a continuity aspect, that I hope to make the transition, to new leadership with CEO Hansen more continuous, less start stop. So we're not just starting over with a brand new slate there. Continuity and support, support for the new president. I think Nicole and I had discussions about that, and she's gung ho and ready to do this job, and clearly everybody thinks that she's ready to do this job. But I would like to be close enough to be able to provide that kind of support. So that's my pitch. That's my answer to your why question, Kirsten.
Follow up? Man, so if we have a immediate past president position, which many boards do, then would you feel the need to be kind of taking a step backwards to be vice president?
Yeah, I had considered that.
We don't have it, it's not an option.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out what we should do for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would depend a lot on what that role was, immediate past president, right? I mean, because you could also say, could I just do all of that as a non-executive committee board member, right? That I serve that role? The involvement piece would be questionable to me, right? So I know what the involvement is on executive committee as vice president. I'm excited about that. If the role were different, if the role were called something different and defined differently, like immediate and past president, it would be important for me to understand what involvement that is. It just what do they call it? Emeritus kind of thing. In which case I would still be asking to be vice president. I don't want to be emeritus president.
Okay, cool. So if it was an executive board position,
then
then
absolutely
it's a
yes.
different thing.
Then
Okay.
absolutely
Something
yes.
we might have to think about for the future.
Committee.
Thank you, sir.
Do I have any other nominations for vice president? Okay. We'll go ahead and do the secret ballot then. Okay.
Very competitive. All right. Dusty gets to start.
I'm old enough to show.
No.
Put a check in there.
Yeah. Makes me nervous because my name's only 3 letters.
Smash my thumb.
Well, you do have a last name.
That's true, I do.
A surname.
Depends on which name you're going by.
I do have Theodore is a much longer name. Yeah.
Anybody ever tried Teddy on you?
I think I've had most of them. Thankfully settled on Ted.
Ed?
Never Ed. Yeah.
We have 11 votes for Ted and 1 vote for Kirsten. So Ted is our new vice president.
Thanks, everyone. My acceptance speech is just that I look forward to any way that I can assist Nicole, and please feel free to lean as heavily as you want on whatever experience I might have.
I look forward to continuing the work that you've done. Okay, let's go to secretary. Do we have any nominations for secretary? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Director Mitchell for the secretary position.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open, Director Mitchell, do you accept?
I do.
Okay, maybe I'll see if there's any other nominations first. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Okay. John, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I'll keep it brief. My My objective of being secretary, as we've all spoken, is as I've communicated to some of you, is to make sure that the Fitch rating process goes well. I have a fair amount of first-person experience on navigating the rating process, and being on the executive team is important for the optics of that process. It should yield dividends to the membership over the long period, having the best rating that we can possibly achieve. Other than that, it's my love for detailed note taking, and that's driving me to become the secretary. And then other than that, I think a couple questions were raised about whether or not I realistically have the time to take the responsibility for the additional duties. And just to reassure this team that I would not put my hand in up if I wasn't confident I could get that done. So.
Thank you, Director Winchell. Do we have any questions for?
This is more of a comment, but I really see this. I mean, I think electing our president is the most consequential decision, but I would say that this position and having Director Winchell in this position is probably the most financially consequential decision that we make in today's elections. And you know, one rating difference in our Fitch credit score has a tremendous financial impact. And so, you know, I think we want to put the best person in front of that process that we can. I think John will do a great job in conjunction with Patrick and with Graham and with the FAC to getting the best rating we can possibly get. So I'm very supportive of having his expertise in that position.
Thank you, Ted. Any other comments?
Rachel has.
Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
I guess I need further clarification. This, obviously this is a new process, the credit rating, and it's not been part of the treasurer or the secretary's repertoire in the past. So I'm confused I'm unclear of what significant role the secretary plays, and within that, then what kind of skills or competencies we should be looking for.
Yeah, that if you're okay, Nicole, I'll speak to that directly. In the ideal world, the board representative in these processes would typically be the treasurer or the head of the FAC committee. I think that, you know, Tim has really done a terrific job in that role, and so I think all things being equal, keeping him in that seat is more important. So that sort of knocks that position out, and the secretary is the next available position. I think that there was some thinking maybe it might be an appropriate role for me to be. I don't want to be the president. To be clear on that, I think Nicole is the right person for that job, and I think that Ted is in the best position to help ensure that she is onboarded quickly and is successful there. So the president and VP sort of didn't really sit well either, and that basically leaves the secretary as part of the exec team. So that's why the secretary, it's not perfect, but it's good enough for these processes. The second question that I think you identified was, well, what the hell does the board do in that process, and why does a rating agency care? And the answer to that question is, rating agencies, in part, as part of their determination for how to, a rating agency primary job is to determine the likelihood that you repay your obligations. That is the essential purpose of a rating agency. And they look at a broad range of things. As Patrick could tell you, they'll look at things like your debt service coverage ratio, and they'll look at your loan to value metrics, and they'll look at your accounts receivable and your write-offs and your bad debt. And they look at all these metrics, and Patrick has all of that stuff in hand. And then they'll look at the near-term transaction. The credit agency rating will not directly impact the buyout, but it will affect counterparty risk as we look to do long-term PPAs, both in this year and once we get to the other side of bridge power. And so that's where it's going to show up in our that's where a good rating creates economic value for the board. And so part of their process is to look at your financial and policy controls. So in the financial, it's relatively straightforward, and Patrick and his team have that well in hand. Like, do you require double signatures for checks above a certain dollar threshold? Do you require board governance approval for checks above commitments above a certain threshold? These are all sort of very brush your teeth and eat your vegetables. And then there's another layer where it's handled at the board, where they're looking at policies. Does the board have policy controls and governance procedures in place to ensure timely and predictable repayment of financial obligations? Is there a process for escalation in the event that there is serious dispute at the staff level? Is there a process for takeover in a downside scenario? And what are your and subsequent policies that are related to personnel, and I can go on and on. I had to go through all of this process about a year ago for King Energy, and we rapidly fired off a bunch of sort of nickel dime policies when the rating agencies came back and they said, well, you don't have this and you don't have this and you don't have this. And we just like, oh, let me go get a bunch of consent approvals from my board to shore that up. And then they took this huge checklist, hundreds of items of checklists, and went, okay, they have it, they have it, they have it, they have it, they have it. And instead of it becoming an issue, it just evaporates and becomes a non-issue. That is the useful place. That is where my experience can help, and where being the secretary is works here. And that's really, I'm going to help Patrick and I'm going to help Chris with that process. And after that, from there on out, it's just sort of do the policy stuff, as we've been doing it on an as needed basis. And the policy team or the committee on policy is a team, and we'll work together as a team to move stuff forward as the ordinary course of business unfolds in the next 12 months. But my real focus is what I just articulated. Does that give you enough color on why I'm standing up for this heartburn? So.
Yeah, that does help. And I guess it'll just be my follow-up, because that part gives me quite a bit of clarity. Where I was confused was the part about running the policy committee, which I don't see is something that you necessarily love.
Yeah.
And so just, yeah, it sounds like you're willing to do that part of it.
Yeah. And I'll do it for sure. In the past, I've taken a much more aggressive sort of role of leadership. Hey, I want things this way. I push and advocate for the things I believe in. I don't really have much of an opinion on policy in general. So I think you'll see much more of a, hey, are we complying with Rob's rules of order? Are we getting our job done, rather than me getting in and pushing on whether or not pushing on random policy issues. But we'll get that done, and we'll get that done as a team. So. And as I said, yes, there'll be a surge of work in the next 2 months, but then I have 10 months of work on policy, and I will make time in my schedule to make sure that gets done, and it doesn't get done in a half-ass way.
Thank you, John. Do we have any more questions or comments from the rest of the board? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and fill out our ballots. Oh, bless you.
I'm very.
There you go.
Have 11 votes for John and 1 vote for Kirsten. So John is our new secretary.
Congratulations, John. The next final vote for the executive team is treasurer. I will open the floor for nominations. Go ahead, hold it.
All right, we'll nominate Tim.
Okay, Tim, do you accept?
Yes, I do, thanks. Thanks, Colin. Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and open the floor for comments and then
Questions?
questions from anyone else on the board? Still? You still want to be the treasurer?
For punishment.
Yeah, let me speak. I mean, I view this as, it's been a pleasure actually being treasurer, off and on over the time I've been on this board. I'm one of those weird guys that likes numbers, finance and so forth. So there's a certain element of enjoyment that I get out of it, but it is a lot of work sometimes. And I'd like to continue it at least one more year because I think this is a critical year. We have, as John Mitchell just talked about, the credit rating coming up. We also have a new risk policy that we're developing over the next few years. Kind of an ongoing thing, and we've not entered that sphere in the past with this kind of a policy. That was assigned to the Finance and Audit Committee. And I feel keeping that continuity is good for the organization and the co-op. And so I'm willing to step up to do that. And even if it is a lot more work, but most of the work ends up getting done by the great staff that we have. And mine is more of a guidance. So they're the real folks that put their feet in the ground and make stuff happen. I feel there's a good relationship there. That's helpful as well. Highly respectful of their work. So I'm willing to do it and eager to get on with it if the board so chooses.
Thank you, Tim. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just want to sort of expand slightly on what I said before. I think it goes, I think Tim's contribution as treasurer is and the outstanding job he's done is an understated point when we look at some of the financial and often criminal charge problems that have emerged in other organizations around the country. It brings into focus the importance of the treasurer and having board oversight. And it's one thing to have board oversight where you're just rubber stamping stuff and saying, yeah, whatever staff says. And it's another thing to actually take an active role month over month and be responsible for what you stood up for. And I think Tim's done really an outsized job in that capacity. And certainly as a member and as a fellow board member, I'm grateful for his contribution. And I couldn't be happier with his work. So thank you.
Jess.
Go ahead, Dusty.
Thanks. Besides the risk assessment, are there any other challenges, I guess, or major hurdles that you see coming up in the next year for this position?
For the what?
For this position, for the treasurer's position.
Yeah, there's a lot of boxes that need to be ticked and checked as we move to the exit. And so there's some continuity within the sort of agenda that the FAC follows. Several of those are standing that we look at, including looking at new financial metrics that we have. You'll see those in the dashboard coming up here shortly. And we're reevaluating those with upcoming exit and the fact that some of those will need to change with respect to the financing of that and other things. There are some elements of things like the fast track as well that we look at and monitor the status of final payments of that, things like that. So, yeah, there's 4 or 5 key things that we want to monitor on a regular basis, review, and maybe have recommendations to the board as appropriate for those, and want to present them in a way that the board hopefully will accept. So, does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense, thanks.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, just advocacy. I mean, I think that, we've all talked about Tim's good financial acumen and understanding what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I'd also say he does a fantastic job sharing the FAC meetings. I mean, I attend as much as I can, and they run very smoothly. So kudos for that. Keep up the good work. And then also, it's really helpful, your ability to bring that back to the full board. That communication between committee and full board is really critical, so that those of us on the board who are either on the committee or attending, can keep up, and you do a great job of that. So hopefully that will continue.
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, and I'm always, like Nicole said earlier, I'm open to like feedback and criticism. Welcome everybody at the board, at the FAC meeting. Directors get lots of opportunities to participate there, even if they're not committee members, and so I think it's a really good forum, and allows us to look into the key elements of our dashboard, which is the financial part. And so I hope to continue that. As I say, if anyone has suggestions for improvements or criticisms of my style, feel free to bring them. I'll try to listen to them.
Go ahead, Kohler.
Yeah, I'd like to really support Cam being on the FAC. I think he's done a great job with leadership. You've also listened to me. Sometimes I'm not in agreement with you, but you've listened and you've actually changed my mind on some things. I appreciate your understanding, your knowledge on that, so I definitely support Tim. And I do think that there's a lot coming up. That consistency is really, really key for what's going to be forward facing. So thank you, Cole. Means a lot.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for our nominee? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and fill out your ballots. Ooh, hey.
Yeah, you gotta read that.
Bread? Yes, it's the bread.
Hey, Janelle, can I ask a question while he's counting?
Sure.
When the board package changes, on board, is there someplace I can go to see just what the changes were?
Oh, okay.
So just,
Yeah, that's why I tell you guys to hold off until like.
yeah, well, I know, but you have time, you have time.
Yeah, we usually are doing changes up until then. I know we have financials changed.
Yeah.
It seems like she usually says this changed.
It said the financials changed.
Yeah.
Financials are 10 days.
Yes.
That was the hard part.
Understood.
Yeah.
That was the hard part. Yeah.
Those are in there.
I can be specific as to what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't necessarily know exactly what changed, but it's
Right.
good to see if the thing
Okay.
come across that.
All 12 votes. Tim Wheeler is your 1 cent future.
Okay. So we have 3 more elections. We have the LPEA delegate and alternate for CREA, Western United, and the tri-state monitoring position.
And the round.
Oh, rounders, okay. So why don't we just go ahead and start with CREA? Anyone want to put forward a nomination? Go ahead, Kirsten.
Yeah, I'm gonna self-nominate. At the same time, I'm going to, as I was driving over here today, I was thinking, wow, this would be a great job for some of the new folks, because you learn so much about not only, you learn about the board here, but you learn about other boards when you're on a statewide. So I'm totally open and I really did think about it on my drive over, so I didn't have a chance to talk to you guys. If you guys are up for it, then I'd be happy about that. So that's what, so I'm self-nominated.
So I hear one nomination
Yeah.
for Kirsten, and I'll go to Kohler next.
I'm gonna nominate Brad, like,
Okay.
that's very reasonable.
Good, good.
Brad, do you accept that nomination?
Sure.
Sure.
There's a meeting on Friday.
Yeah, okay.
So did
Then I'm withdrawing.
Withdraw.
Okay, so we have one nomination on the floor. Anyone else? Okay, Brad, would you like to say anything?
Not yet.
Okay.
There.
Any comments or questions?
Rachel has her hand up.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Thanks so much. Hey Brad, nice to meet you from a box over here. Cool to see you step into this role. I'm curious, Kirsten, that was generous of you to step back, and I agree you learn a lot about co-ops. This is also our kind of policy arm at the state level, and kind of my read on it as you dive deep into some of these issues with the utility sector, especially working on the state legislative side of the things that aren't like electric utility 101 perhaps. And as we've all experienced when we're on this board, like, holy wow, we learn a lot fast. And it's like a 3-year learning curve until you get your baseline under you. And so curious, Brad, how I know you've been in politics before and worked in the policy space, but how that feels to you. Because I think we certainly don't want to set you up for failure. And I also know LPA has expressed interest this last year in being more involved in policy and advocacy in the state ledge moving forward.
Well, thank you. And it is definitely a learning curve. I was the vice chair of the General Government Committee for CCI for the whole state of Colorado. So I am used to learning quickly and jumping into policy and government government law. So I think I could catch up quickly. This kind of speaks to something that I had thought about mentioning later in the meeting, where on big boards like this, sometimes it's nice to have mentorship, kind of a program where somebody like me that's new could work with somebody who has been doing it for a while, just for questions or just general overview. So that might be something to think about here for some of us new board members. But I feel like I can step into it. I understand that it requires some time commitments, and I can commit to that. I'd be really remiss if I didn't have some concerns about it, because I just don't know what it is completely. So I am very, very interested in all things power and have been for a long time. And I think that things are going to be changing quickly in that. And I kind of look forward to being involved in that. And not only as a individual, but as a representative of a district here in LPEA, but then also looking out for all members of LPEA. And I think that things are going to be very interesting in the next few years, power-wise. So that's what I can tell you.
Did you follow-up question on that one? And it's actually more for the lawyer. You put your lawyer hat on. Oh, you've got your tie on. Okay. This is an association, so it's a state association. And I know that we can't not. So like for WUE, we cannot direct how our guy votes on WUE. Can we? What? I'm thinking about the policy stuff. And LPA policies and the kind of leanings tend to be very different than CREAs. And we had a voice there with Holly that was in line with LPA, and I don't know your bloody politics, so I really don't know. So can we say, this is where LPA wants to head? Or do we, I mean, we can always say that, but can he totally ignore that?
No, right, because, and I know what you're sort of saying is that sort of like when you're a dual director on
Right.
2 boards, but
Right.
CREA isn't really a business entity that has its own business best interests to manage, right? So
Yeah.
he would have, when it comes to a policy question, he's got an obligation to advocate for what is stated to, or is sort of uniformly agreed in this boardroom to be the position of this entity and reflect it there, right? But you're right. So other times we have, as Western United, right? It's an independent business that we have a seat on the board of directors of, and that director needs to behave in the best interest of Western United being a going concern as a business. CRA is a little bit different as it's a advocacy group.
Okay. And I'm sorry to be
Trade
talking about you
association,
in the
yeah.
third person while you're standing.
Just fine.
No, it's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for our nominee? Okay, and then my question for you is typically we do the WBE, CREA alternate switch.
Yeah.
So can we just do just the appointment and then do WUE and then, or how do you?
You know, I think that sort of makes sense. So to kind of bring our new directors up to speed, that Western United, I think, corresponds their meetings with CREA to sort of reduce travel costs for an overhead for the co-ops that participate. So we often will sort of have the Western United director be the alternate for CREA and vice versa, because it sort of trims down, especially because we fund that travel at the LPEA level, not at those entities levels, right? So I think that can kind of, so as a big picture, I'll say this to kind of orient, especially the new directors to this process. Our bylaws say that we have to vote for the officers by ballot, but we don't have that obligation for anything else. So that's why you see there's no ballots out for these positions. So we can proceed as a slate if you want. We can proceed to, just sort of acclamation voting if we sort of all agree on a slate and not have sort of contested elections, or if things are contested, somebody can move that we go to ballot, right? And then we can do it that way where people don't have to be public about their votes. Either one is sort of an option procedurally. And so I would say, in sake of time, if there is sort of a consensus around a Western United and CREA person and having them be the alternates, that a slate might make sense in this instance. Yeah.
So with that in mind, did you call him?
Yep.
Okay, I would nominate David Lucian as the WUE delegate. And then we could have that discussion, and if that's the case, we could, by acclamation, if that's possible.
Okay.
And then they could be the alternates.
It was gonna be about the alternates. I would like to be the alternates for both of them.
You would like to be alternates for both, okay?
So real quickly, do you accept?
Yes,
that
I do
nomination?
accept. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'm hearing another self-nomination to be an alternate
To
for
alternate for both.
CREA and W. Okay, why don't we start with David, and maybe you can give some comments and if we have any questions.
So I've been on the Western United Electric Supply Board for 2 years. It's been an honor. And what that is that it's a co-op of 40+ co-ops that pull together material. So if we wanted to go and get conductor, or if we want to get some cable or some transformers, we're very small and big picture of vendors. So the volume this year is hopefully going to be about $302 million worth of purchases in Colorado, also in Utah, New Mexico, a little bit of Arizona, etc. And it's a great organization. In 2 years, this past year, I've been on their financial committee. And this year in August, I'm on the ballot to be their treasurer, and it's non-contested. So I've been working there, trying to move up on their executive side because it's very well run. And I think it's a huge benefit for LPEA and our members to be part of Western United Electric. It's a huge benefit that they can continue to do the good job. And a little aside to that is during COVID, they actually listened to all the co-ops and they pre-bought a lot of material for their warehouses. And so they were looking at the members first and not at the bottom line of what this might cost them. So very well run, want to represent LPA. And in my past life, this is what I did, would write purchase requisitions for millions of dollars worth of substation, transmission, distribution equipment, et cetera. So I understand the business, I understand what's going on, and I really would like to continue and serve on that board so I can serve LPA. Okay.
Any questions for David? Okay, go ahead, Kirsten, do you want to make a case?
Yeah, for alternates, we have sometimes switched them, we've done that for the past 2 years. We didn't do that before, so, I'd like to be, I've been on WU, I stepped down from there, haven't been on CREA, that was Holly, was on CREA. I know CREA and done, and I did alternate for WU once last year, and I forget why, maybe Holly wasn't available.
No, I wasn't available last year.
Yeah, but Holly was
Holly
your
would-
alternate, so.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know
I
what-
stepped in for CREA alternate, we kind of.
Yeah, I forget why,
Yeah.
but anyway, I was alternate one time last year, so. I mean, I could step in, I know both of those folks, I think it'd be good to have somebody kind of on your heels, Brad, and you travel a lot, Brad, so I'm thankful.
Okay, so why don't I'll open the floor then, for a motion.
I wanted to ask a,
Okay, go ahead, Ted.
expense clarifying question. Does alternate always travel or only travel when there's a requirement?
I don't know, WUE pays, you misspoke, WUE pays.
They do pay.
Yeah,
they pay
so
for travel.
CREA, we pay for CREA, but we don't pay for WUE. I don't know, I was, what did I have to attend? Oh, I attended, no, you attended, you were alternate for, and it was gonna be up in someplace, and you did it by virtual, so usually there's a virtual.
Yeah, so you can either zoom in and save the cost,
Yeah,
but on the alternate for WE would be paying the
Yeah.
alternate travel.
yeah.
What they do not pay for is the annual tier on WE, unless you are an executive on WE. So if I become executive this year.
We'll save $600, okay, brother?
And the travel and the
Okay.
hotel.
Okay.
So that's a kind of a clarifying.
There you go, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it doesn't have to.
Clear enough for me.
Okay,
Go ahead, Tim.
So I make a motion.
I think, and John may have a comment before.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I actually, I think, Lucian's done a fine job at Western. It's so great, totally in support of that. I'd like to actually, have the board consider, and I'd like to ask and nominate, Rachel to be the CREA, job, rep. And the reason I would like that to be brief, and we can then all discuss it, is to, I think we're at a crucial moment right now, and we need, all of our front-facing, public-facing board members with deep experience in the LPA nuances, of which Rachel has it. And I think that, Brad, you would be a perfectly fine candidate in a year. But coming straight off coming straight out of the locker room into CREA at this moment in time, I think is a mistake. And so I'd like to see Rachel, and if Rachel, you're not up for it, I'd like to revisit Kirsten doing it for one more year. So Rachel, given that perspective, Rachel, would you be willing to do that if the rest of the board wanted it?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, I think I'd be interested in this, and for the reason John just said, I think it would be, it's an interesting moment to have a brand new person step into that space, just knowing some of the complicated ways we are navigating both CREA and then state legislative and regulatory, with this shift in our own power supplier. So in that regard, definitely willing to step into that. I think what I could bring is just an understanding of just the policy space and how things move forward in the state. and how to navigate that. I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like there's toxic dynamics at CREA that don't really excite me. But I'd be willing to deal with that. And I think would do it very much in a mentorship role to pass it off.
Okay, any questions for Rachel? Then for nomination, go ahead.
Rachel, can you commit to the time and the travel for that?
But I was just trying to think through in the back of my head, this is not my plan. So I got Kirsten's memo early and got really excited for that she was running for the seat. A quick question, is this always in person? I believe if I remember, it's half travel, half in person, or half travel, half Zooming.
I think you can Zoom every time. I don't think they have a minimum, they always have it as an option.
The majority of the meetings are in person, but there is always the Zoom.
Yeah.
We're having a special meeting, I think the
Tomorrow,
27th.
day after tomorrow.
Day after tomorrow, it's 22nd. And so that one's Zoom only because it was a special meeting.
Right.
But the majority is travel to Denver. So that's an understanding for Brad also, it's travel to Denver.
Rachel, if we're gonna go this direction, I mean, if the thought is we don't want a new, we want a face, then I will put my name back in the hat, and that might help you make your decision. If that's why don't we do that? I'm gonna put my name back in the hat, and the board can decide, do we want a new person, or do you want a face of somebody who knows the board up there and knows the politics up there?
Okay, Rachel, how did you respond to that?
Kirsten, that's official. You're self-nominated.
That's official whether you run or not, now that
Okay.
I.
Wonderful. And Brad, absolutely, this is not personal in any way, shape, and or form. I really look forward to meeting you and working with you. This feels awkward to do from a far off Zoom box. But yeah, knowing that, I will repeal my nomination. Thanks, John.
Hey, John, do you have further comment for?
Just everything I said applies to Kirsten even more so because she's been in the seat. And I think I'm glad that you're stepping up for that. Kirsten, I think you're the ideal candidate coming out of the board in the next 12 months. And 12 months from now, probably a whole new ballgame. But for this short period of time, we need to put the strongest players in the right seats. So, and you are, in my mind, that person.
Okay. Go ahead, Tim.
So just a process question. So it seems like maybe we should have a vote on each of these as well as an alternate at this point. 'Cause it's not.
Yeah, we don't have a set slate, so we can't do an acclamation vote on a set slate. We'll need to have a vote here, right, which would be by, show of hands and be an open vote unless somebody made a motion to have a ballot for this contested election and that motion for ballot passed, right? We just default to open voting for this position.
For CREA.
For CREA, so we have
Thank you.
two candidates, Kirsten and Brad.
Okay, I will accept, so I'm sorry, do we need a motion for each of those, or can I just put it out there?
I think we could proceed to, sort of have a moment here that if anybody wants to move for a ballot. And if you don't see anything here in the next couple seconds, then I think we can go to vote, right?
I move for a ballot.
All right, so we have a motion for a ballot. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have a second? All right, go ahead. Sorry, jump in.
Okay, do everyone in favor of having
I
a
think we have a quick discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Anybody want to have discussion on whether or not we should have a ballot?
I think it's relevant. I think it can make sense for the same reasons that we do this for executive committee positions.
Okay, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Are you 10? Okay. Opposed?
And I could maybe make it shorter. I feel like for the good of all things mentioned by John, that Kirsten may be at this time, the very best person for the position. I don't mind going, I don't mind learning, I don't mind stepping up and stepping in. But, it may make sense, to just do that, and I could withdraw my name or nomination, for those reasons. I mean, to me, really, for the betterment of the co-op and for the, things moving forward, that might be the very best thing. So,
I think that's entirely up to you if you want to withdraw or not.
I would.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So now we just have one nomination on with Kirsten.
So that could,
Yeah.
that could go back to a motion for acclamation.
Yeah.
In which case, if that's okay, I would move that we vote or a vote for acclamation or whatever.
Yeah.
Think of the process. Kirsten for CREA, David for WE. They could be the alternate as well
For each other.
for each other.
Second.
Friendly amendment,
Sure.
could we make, Director Blake the alternate for CREA so that he has?
I'll remove the alternate piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just these two for
Yeah,
that position.
So just for the delegates, right now we have a slate up for acclamation. Kirsten, CREA, David Western.
Okay, I hear a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And now we will put it out on the floor. We need an alternate for both of these. Do we have a nomination for an alternate?
I'd like to nominate Brad, if you'd accept it,
Okay,
Yes.
for both CREA and WUE?
just for CREA. I
Okay.
think we can do the flip flop for WE.
I would really like to be WE alternate.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do we have anything that wants to be said? Okay, okay, let's do a vote for the alternate for CREA. All in favor of Brad? Hands down. Okay, opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Brad, for stepping up. And I will say, as a newish board member, Kirsten is an amazing mentor. We drove here quite a few times together and had coffee quite a few times. So she's a wonderful person for exactly what you were looking for. Thank you for your willingness to step in. Okay, so WUE, let's we have a nomination
For
for an
alternate,
alternate.
I would like to be alternate.
Okay, Kirsten, any other nominations? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye for Kirsten. Okay. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And now we're going to move on to the tri-state monitoring position. Do we have, go ahead, Joe?
Can we, do we have discussion? Can we have a discussion first on this?
I think that's fine. We don't need a motion. Yeah, go ahead.
I still don't, I have no idea why we need a board member monitoring tri-state. The reason I say that is because, number one, we're gonna be out in what, 7 months, 8 months. Number two, Graham and Chris are still involved in keeping their eyes and ears on what's going on in tri-state. We have one issue that we're worried about with tri-state, and that's their raising their rate in January. That's the only thing that we have to worry about at this point. There's nothing else that they're doing that affects us or that we need to consider. And I don't want to, we don't have to spend any more time or money sending someone to those meetings or listening into those meetings. So I would like to just take that off the table and leave it in the hands of Graham and Chris.
Okay. Do we have any comments? Just response.
So I guess
Or just
that's what
discussion, or is that a motion?
Yeah, would that be a motion or are you moving
Oh,
that we
sure.
don't have
Yeah, I'll move to
in this position?
to end the position of board member monitoring tri-state meetings.
Second.
Second.
Now discussion. Go ahead, Kirsten.
I think this is an important position. You're right, we do have two staff that do attend. I have been attending in the past, and what I bring back is more what I think that we as a board and from Tri-State. As they are ahead of us on SPP, they've been headed, they go in the same day we do because, but they're ahead of us. They, some of their governance is, they know some, they do some good things, and I brought that back, but this is how they do it there. And I think you guys get tired of me hearing about that, of you guys hearing about that. And frankly, sometimes Patrick and I will say, hey, I missed this, did you hear that? And it's been helpful. And I'll get a screen print maybe that he didn't get, or that Graham didn't get. So I go with a different ear than staff go. I go with what can we as a board learn from this? And, for $240 a month, I think I do much more value, I do more than $240 of education, and we'll hear about some of that unfortunately, in executive session today.
Okay, any comments? Go ahead, Ed.
Ditto, I really support that. I think what we get, Kirsten enjoys this work, and therefore she brings a lot of passion to it, and we get a lot of value out of what you bring back to us. We did the cost benefit analysis on this a few months ago, and it came out very much in your favor. And so I continue to support the role.
Okay, any other comments before I call for a vote? Rachel. Oh, Rachel, go ahead.
Everything just got said, but I'd echo that. Just even as an example, I was reading about their DER programs they're launching in, I think, summertime, and so excited to see what that looks like and if we might be able to emulate it. And so I agree the ROI makes sense. So that's all assuming Kirsten still wants to do this, but so I will be voting against this motion.
Go ahead, Joe.
Just have one more comment. As far as being ahead of Tri-State, I think our staff and our financial team is far ahead of Tri-State. If you look at their balance sheet and what they're doing and how slow they've been to help out co-ops. They haven't done anything to help out co-ops until they were forced to by the legislature. And I feel very strongly about that. And I think, but by having a monitor, Kirsten, with all due respect, I read your reports and, okay, they're great. I don't learn anything from the Tri-State Board.
Okay, any other comments? Then I will call for a vote on Joe's motion to eliminate the position of Tri-State Monitor. All in favor of that, please say aye. Raise your hand.
1, 2.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8.
He had his hand up.
Yeah, so 1. All right, I didn't.
John?
Rachel has her hand up.
Yep.
So, right, so John Witchell, I don't see present to vote.
I think John might have logged off.
He's on.
I mean, he's there, just the screen is empty, so we'll have him absent for this vote. It's 2 to 9, yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you guys. Now we will, we still have that on the floor. Tri-State monitoring position, do we have a nomination for? Go ahead.
I'll nominate Kirsten.
Okay, Kirsten, you accept?
Thank you. This should be the last year we have one. They leave April 1 and so this is the last one. I'd like to sunset it. Thank you.
Okay, any other nominations? Any other discussion or comments?
Just a question. So you want to do CREA and Tri-State?
I'm a glutton.
Okay.
It's CRA is more paperwork than Tri-States.
Okay, so we have a nomination on the floor. Any other comments? I see none. Let's call for a vote. All in favor of Kirsten being the Tri-State monitoring position, signify by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye. So there's 9, yeah.
Yeah. And then any opposed? Just one.
Yep.
One extension.
Opposed and some John absent.
I get it.
Okay,
So can I make a comment at the?
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying. What I mostly heard is that you don't learn anything. So that's from what I give. So that means I'm not doing it.
No, that's.
No. But what I want to say is that I'm hearing what folks say and I'm up for feedback. I'm not
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, so we are currently 26 minutes over, time.
We still have a round up.
Oh,
You're right on
sorry.
head schedule, man.
Yeah. Okay, so roundup, let's go ahead and accept nominations. David?
I'd like to nominate Director Dusty Mars and Director Brad Blake, and just a little pitch on it. I've been doing Roundup for 2 years and it's great. It's where the Roundup monies get to be passed to our community in nonprofit grants, so approximately 5,000 each month. And then the educational grants, which is another 5,000. So you learn a lot about our members, and it is a volunteer member board that you'll be working with. Plus, with that, I'm on the CEAC, which meets every week, which Roundup, through our monies, we have about $500 every week to help with micro grants for people who need housing, rental assistance, vehicle maintenance, etc. So you'll learn a lot about the community, and it's a great way to get your foot into the door of what's going on with our community, with LPA, what goodness LPA does. So after every meeting, it's actually feels really good to be part of that and be part of helping out the community with our Roundup dollars. So.
And just a point of clarification, service on Seek is not part of this nomination. So do you guys accept?
I'm willing to accept. I'll appreciate the nomination. I feel like it would be good learning opportunity. It's not something you get a lot of background on with respect to LPA's going on, to be able to be successful. So I appreciate it.
There's Zoom meetings too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's this meeting the last Monday, 3:30 PM of every month. And like, here, Nicole said, Seek is something you can volunteer for, you don't have to. Roundup is all you have to. And then there's the, POT.
The POC.
POC in the negotiating areas.
Okay, so I've got 2 nominations for 2 positions that have both accepted. Do I have any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, do we have any other comments or questions for our respective nominees?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to support the nomination and say that I do think it's really important to have a District 1 director, if at all possible, right? It's not necessarily fair and equitable because, you know, we only have 3 and we have to have, you know, fill these positions all the time, but it's great to have a District 1 director on Roundup because we need to make sure that the way we distribute these monies, is represented by District 1, so.
Thank you for that. Any other comments before I call for a vote?
Both accepted.
Yeah.
Both have accepted. We all appreciate that. I will, all in favor of these Dusty and Brad, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. I still don't see John, so. Yeah, 11.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, now I can do a time check. It is 11 o'clock. We were supposed to be on the dashboard 20 minutes ago. However, I did hear loud and clearly from board members, we need breaks. We did have a technological break. I propose we do a 5-minute break, 11:05, come back, and we just start with the dashboard. Okay,
Right, so don't expect that.
okay, I'll meet that enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things.
Yes, some are employee monitored, others are.
Yeah.
As far as. Somebody should several about it. Taking care of this version, so it's like a year ago. And then sort of wanted to get that out. Yeah. Here. It looks like it's social, right? So something, I don't know, I'd be on moving. Yeah. Correct, right, so I will, you know, I will stop. Yep, not. We're going to. Yeah.
I'm a grad student.
I know, well.
I was a little confused, are you?
I was confused. It was gonna be like, you know, just be like, this party, yeah, I don't know, yeah. Because of this connectivity, so, you know, I didn't bring my. So, yeah, so I got a quick story for you. So,
last week, we set out, the Chesapeake Bay. Right. I think we got one to the right house and then. My wife's, so yeah, it's baseball and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
He gave us, around, my daughter, my daughter is Naval Academy sweatshirt, right? She promptly wore to her, her States at the Air Force.
Cool, that's
So, and it's very, and my wife's sister actually graduated. So now we're sort of like, seeing this sort of like. Such a street way. You know, seriously, yeah, it's sort of, fighting for her.
Pretty super volleyball.
Yeah, you know, she's, and she really likes it. You know, I think it's good. She's, you know, she's was an early grower. So they sort of remember outside hitter, but she was really, you know, setter in the long run. It's up being at the Air Force Academy campus because they're actually are all girls there. So it's good. She actually is just and it looks like so Fort Lewis, well, is sort of strategy, sort of styles and sort of based like not having about 6 foot 5. But no, I think just, yeah, oh, yeah, exactly, no. Second. Yeah. Over there. Yes. Stuff, and you know, and kind of sitting on the tour, that's the one on the sort of stuff that like, absolutely, whether you're from, it's kind of like a third, that's not zero. Now with the other thirds.
Yeah, they were all.
They were, right, they all have, everybody have to have. Yeah, no, it's sort of, listen to some fun. Hey, thank you.
It's pretty.
It really was nice. My son and I went out, so, you know, it was getting to the end, you know, like, trips to what. So I can write out. Sure.
And how easy to feel what is for your listeners.
Oh, okay.
And you have, I know you have closure talk, but you have some great.
Yeah.
Hardware.
Yeah. And I don't know, like CPS.
So.
What?
No, it's solution. No, it's all.
Or the operation, like your operation, or it's like coal power plants, Bruce.
Right here.
You were the one who.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
Were ending the price.
Yeah, right. The right remaining tires. Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so on my side, I was.
I need to go.
I don't do any.
Yeah.
Been trying to look at.
I see you doing exactly.
Yep, and then they'll do that.
So I.
It was.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think the back house. That's real.
Here we go. That was.
Thank you. Yeah, don't make.
I'll leave your fingers.
Okay, so we are gonna just move along. Just a quick point, I got a text from John Mitchell, he is no longer gonna be joining us.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so, we will go ahead and Grant stepping in, for Chris Hansen, who will be doing our dashboard.
All right, thank you. Go to the first slide, our key performance indicators that everybody's familiar with. The one yellow exclamation mark we have is cash reserves, which I believe everybody is familiar with the story related to that. We've been bringing you along monthly, but Patrick will speak to it more specifically in the plan section. We'll go to the next slide. Just so everybody knows, I was sort of planning to be brief on this anyway, and so really, the only thing I wanted to point out on this slide was the photograph, which is our Seal of Climate Literacy Awards, which we'll speak to specifically a couple slides later. Anybody have any questions on this slide? No? Okay, let's go to the next slide. As on this one, I just wanted to highlight the completion of the Wildwood cable replacement capital project in the Pagosa area. And sort of just want to point out some good District 1 advancements there, and working on improving the reliability and capacity, especially in that part of our service territory. Anybody? Yeah, Joe.
Just I just wanted to point out, I really liked seeing the information about fire mitigation and the right of way in Los Ranchitos. I'd like to see those every month. I think they are in there, but it's, and to tell, you know, the public that we are being very proactive about fire mitigation throughout our service area, and it's not cheap.
Grant. Yes, Grant.
So touching on both of these items, safety, I hate to go back just a little bit, but one of the most dangerous things we do every day is get in our cars. And I have a cousin who was killed in a car accident going to a wildland fire. 6 firefighters killed in the same car accident. So cars are dangerous, fires are bad. And I'm really excited that we're working on both of those issues. I've done a ton of fire mitigation over the years here, and it still maybe isn't enough. It's just that big an issue.
Yeah, it really is, you know, and I think it's appreciate the board being able to prioritize the capital intensive nature of doing that, right? And you'll see, Brad, as a new director, we're getting around the budget season, that we really do sort of try prioritize and identify what is budget related when it comes to wildfire mitigation. Any other questions on this slide?
Just a quick one. The Los Ranchitos right away, is that a overhead or an underground?
Overhead.
Is it? Yeah.
Anything else? Right, so go to the next slide. On this one, wanted Dan to speak for just a second about allowing meter socket adapters and sort of.
Yeah,
it's a little bit of
a little bit of a geeky thing, but it's something that helps our members save some money when interconnecting battery systems especially. It's instead of having to do an isolated unit inside their house, there's a pretty slick collar that goes out behind our meter. Now it takes us a little more effort to coordinate with our meter guys. They have to put the collar out there, then our guys have to show up full meter, put this behind it, shove it back in, and but there's trip charges charged to the member for that, to cover our expenses for going out there, but still that saves the member a couple of $1,000s to be able to do this. So there's been some good success with this, and Excel's territory and Holy Cross as we've taken the best of their policies, I feel, and put that together, and we're following suit on that. If it's something that gets, I don't expect just huge adoption is happening all over our system. You know, if it does, we have to reevaluate, but right now it looks like a good solution for her.
Dan, can you explain a little bit more exactly how this works and then what it's accomplishing?
Yeah, the whole point of this is a centralized point of isolation of the unit from the grid. So if the grid goes out of power it said, oh, the grid's out of power, I'm gonna open a switch here. It's like automatic throwover switch, so to speak, and it's the brains behind everything. And so that the member's house can run on the battery and continue to run on that, isolated from the grid, because there's an open switch in place. And then when the grid comes back into place, it says, oh, look, I see grid power, make sure it stays there for a little bit. Okay, let's make sure we're parallel, now I'm gonna close the switch.
Okay, and they have to agree to be interconnected with us to get that.
Yeah, that happened before, that's a separate process, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Was that work with water generator?
No, it's, in fact, they're actually specific to some of the brands on the battery, so in-phase collar works with an in-phase system. And so there's only a few brands that maybe even have this as an option. But we're working through each one of them. And there's a separate UL rating for that, and that's what we pay attention to. If it's got that UL rating, it's safety and anti-iron.
Thank you. So, sorry if I could just, I couldn't quite hear, I'm sorry, but it was, you said it doesn't work with generators?
Yeah, a motor, yeah.
So most generators have the option already to do that lockout, correct?
Yeah, that's a separate thing that has to get wired in, and
Right.
this makes it a very easy thing for inverter-based resources.
Gotcha.
Does it work with a Tesla 3 wall battery?
If Tesla 3 has a collar, it would.
All right, else on this slide? Nope. All right, go on, just, remind everybody where we are on our roadmap of heading towards energy independence. We're in the RFP process, and we'll talk about that, I believe, a little more in the executive session later today. Next slide. As far as this is where I wanted to talk about the Seal of Climate Literacy event. Very exciting partnership with 9R and Lyra, recognizing our students' meaningful work in climate literacy. CEO Hansen was a big advocate of this when he was in the state legislature. He and our local representative McLaughlin were instrumental in getting this here, and we had a great event here in this room that I think a lot of directors were able to attend. Really nice kind of capstone event for a lot of our local graduates. Any other questions on this slide? Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, concerning the election, so are we gonna get a, I don't know, any kind of follow-up report? I haven't seen any follow-ups on, on financial reporting, and I'm wondering, what we're looking for, and then we have discussed this here, but are we looking to go all online next time, or
Yeah, so the election supervisory committee just met Monday, and they had some sort of follow-up matters where they kind of fully conclude their report. So that report should be to the board at the July meeting. Rachel, yeah. All right, Rachel, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay, sorry, I shifted to earphones. I was curious, I have two questions. One's about the level 1 EV charging with the city. What is unique or different about that program? Just curious.
Yeah, so level 1 is like trying to charge a car from the typical house outlet. It's a very slow charging. And we're trying to encourage, well, us and the city actually got a grant, encourage workplace charging. Vehicles more in line with solar 8-9 hours when we have surplus energy. And what we're trying to demonstrate with this is that, hey, workplaces should offer this as a perk to its employees because it's going to cost you very, very little. So the Plug Electric's role in this is providing the data on how much it actually is costing the company to offer level 1 charging. And the city of Durango got a grant for that to work with these two entities, and we'll see what the results say.
Awesome, thanks for that. And then Fort Lewis already had some, level 2 chargers they installed?
Yes.
So this is just kind of additional metering.
Yeah, level one's just a lot easier to put in. It doesn't really require, it's just an electrical outlet. And the car itself brings its adapter cord and plugs into it. So it's, you know, I think it's a great benefit to offer whether your customers, your employees, whatever it might be, to lure somebody in, you know, as an added benefit of coming to my shop because I've offered this without a whole lot of extra cost to the company. This charges so.
Great, thanks for kind of shading that for me. And then the second question was just kind of, you know, in some of our community engagement conversations and best practices, we've talked about if there's anything to bring back from different community engagement events that we've had to help inform all of us to in turn inform policy, etc. And I just saw that we had a Hesperus meeting. And I know Chris isn't here, but any notes or highlights he had from that he wanted to share with us that are unusual or different from what we've already been hearing?
And he definitely had notes and learned a lot from it. He didn't sort of task me with sort of reporting back on anything specific, so I'm not gonna speak for him, but I know that when I do talk to him, he learns a lot every time he goes out to one of his community events.
Well, maybe we'll poke him when he gets back. I think last time I was out there, they had some interesting things to say about the potential batteries maybe coming that way. I don't know. Cool. Thank you.
Brad, did you have?
Yeah, did I see REI put some charging stations in?
Yes, REI is working with Rivian, put 8 charging stations in over there. So that's a separate service from REI. Rivian's gonna own that electrical service.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, big charging station, big train.
Anybody else?
All level 3 category.
All level 3?
All level.
No.
Not just.
No, they'll be open, they're open source and yeah.
Have a question. You mentioned earlier there would be an ESC for that will be at the next board meeting?
Yeah, it will be at the July board meeting because ESC, when they met, had some follow-up questions that they weren't gonna have the report finalized by today. So they will have a report in the next board. And with the final outcome of the campaign finance disclosures and with any sort of recommendations and lessons learned from this election cycle. So that'll be coming next month. They met on Monday and had some follow-up issues that they were. Any other questions on this slide? Go to the next slide. This is our annual meeting, which really well attended and had a lot of engagement with. I would consider successful. So go to the next slide. All right, Patrick, take it away.
Thanks, everybody. Main financials, as Kirsten pointed out, there were a few revisions. The revisions were the at a glance page and also time of use on page 12 statistic. The actual financials didn't change. But we want to be as transparent as we possibly can. So I'm going to communicate those changes. If I know of anything that is an issue, I'm going to communicate those changes to the greater board and to my team as well. I am culpable for this. We were down a staff, so I have to thank the FAC team for acting kind of as the 12th person to use the Texas A&M metaphor. They had some review for me, so I appreciate that extra support from the FAC team. Looking at May highlights, we were off on our operating margins by 85,000 approximately. That was driven primarily by gross margins missing budget. Revenue was up 2%, cost of power was up 5% approximately. That cost of power delta, that was driven by essentially exceedance charges on our tri-state power bill, meaning we had generation exceedance. Prior year was around 54,000. This year it was approximately 195,000. That drove the delta on that gross margins, which essentially explains our deficit on operating margins. As far as manageable expenses are concerned, we were about flat, with the exception of depreciation was a little elevated and other expenses. When you look at the blended aggregate effect, we had better than budgeted performance in G&A, general administrative expense, and then we had some labor that was a little bit higher than budget, but we generally file manageable expenses. And we talked about the cash metric for the new board members. Congratulations and condolences at the same time. Double-edged sword. Essentially, our cash position, we have been levering cash at a higher rate than this KPI has informed to avoid higher interest costs, essentially. We've had elevated capital spending. That capital spending is a big drain on cash. So rather than borrowing to finance that, we've been able to put cash to use to avoid interest expense. So on the balance sheet, we've seen approximately $16 to $17 million in additional capital projects that have come into process. That's going to be work in progress, or CIP as it's known in different businesses. That's capital in progress, meaning that project has been started but hasn't put in service yet. We have seen that around 16 to 17 million. Our capital budget is about 27 million for 2025. And we have talked to the team about pulling back on that spending to some degree, because they've gotten much more efficient at being able to execute capital projects, which is a bit of a paradigm shift from prior years. So cash flow management is I pay heavy attention to that. Cash is king is kind of my philosophy. So I look at that closely. Having them pull back to better put our cash to use has kind of been the strategy from the finance side of the equation. So any questions on financials for me? I'll go with Dusty first, or Brad.
So just to clarify, our cost of power went up because we produced too much power locally.
That's essentially, I mean, if I was gonna boil it down, that's perfectly said. And Dan might be able to have a little bit of insight as to what the drivers were on that chain.
Yeah, so we have the ability to self-generate 5% of our needs. And so as we bring on special projects and before the board approves, the Tri-State Board approves them, they look and say, yeah, is that gonna be within LPEA's 5%? And back when they were approved, check, they were. Our loads have dropped since then too. So a couple of things, one, just more solar coming on, more excess generation from that. Plus, I'd say what has a greater impact is that just our overall loads have dropped from some industrial loads and more efficiencies. So that's played a part. So that's 5% of a lesser number, and that comes around.
And I was asked the same question, what percent did we get to, 7% or 10%? Any idea?
5.8.
5.8. So a very small move means a lot of money.
It does, yeah. So it was, if we were 10%, it would be a very, very big.
And again, that's something that Tri-State charges us. And our members end up paying for Tri-State's recalcitrance of allowing any other scenario to this point. Now, that's more of a comment than a question.
And just so you know, the way it works is that we have EPAs, the Tri-State essentially, they say, hey, we're gonna buy that project from you at, whatever it might be, but it's above what they save from having that on there. And so if they're giving us, let's just say 6 cents a kilowatt hour for a project, and then at the end of the year, they're like, oh, you over generated, that really only saved us 2 cents because that's our avoided cost. We have to reimburse them for that delta between what they saved and what the PPA was for.
And that's part of the policy 115, essentially.
And so this does not include Sunnyside. That's handled under a different policy. That's they are.
Thank you for answering that.
It's all.
And policy 115 just went that the FERC got filed. I think they're hoping for a June approval of it. It's taking out any mention of the 5%. Those who signed the contract, which we did not, the two did not. So those who signed the contract automatically are gonna be able to do 20%. There's supposedly some sort of administrative stuff, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it. I know Chris said he was gonna look at it.
I've spoken with Jay about it. I would like to be able to give an update on it in executive session when we're talking about it.
Just as a point of clarification, the Tri-State report that came from CEO president said that would be August at the earliest.
Okay.
For approval, not June.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Obviously, this KPI to cash on hand has been, a yellow flag for the previous years, so.
Speak up.
The KPI for cash on hand has been a yellow flag for past year. And I know that's something you guys are maybe looking at redefining the metric. And I looked into the, kind of a back question, but it's really a question for you. So I was looking at that spreadsheet you made, and I wasn't really sure, because I wasn't sure what the difference between, days of liquidity and days of cash on hand was, because it seemed like the cash on hand days was really low, but days of liquidity was made me feel more comfortable.
As it should, because ultimately days of liquidity includes lines of credit. Lines of credit, we have $25 million in lines of credit. So for me to draw from a line of credit when I have cash available to dispatch and pay on that is absurd. Like, it makes no sense. You're gonna spend more cash. If there was threat of a line being revoked, perhaps, but there's no threat of that at this point. And then, so what does that mean? I look at total liquidity, 25 million plus cash. We have cash at Bank of Colorado. We have cash with CFC. CFC is an investment vehicle, meaning we get a better, greater return than we do on Bank of Colorado. We can go to commercial paper. We can go to overnight. So I try and mitigate it to not drive my staff crazy, because every time I do a transaction, that costs a transaction on their end. But we want to leverage that return on investment as much as we can. So moving in and out of commercial paper or their money market fund, we leverage that return on that investment, and we avoid interest expense by using that. So we are going to look at restructuring our lines of credit to go, when we do our total finance package with CFC, I propose to go to a secured line of credit versus what we have right now. Secured line of credit has different parameters. We'll do a hybrid of both secured and unsecured, looking at 15 and 10 respectively. Secured line of credit has different covenants. It's more liquid in terms of how Fitch would. And it's also just from a management standpoint, we can play those two off of each other, because there are requirements about a secured line of credit. We have to have 5 days with 0 balance. So if you're using that for a capital financing mechanism, which CFC has advised us to use that LOC, because they're like, well, why are you borrowing from us? You never draw from your line of credit. It makes no sense. They push that LOC as a product. The secured line of credit makes less sense to dispatch towards some sort of capital spending like that, because ultimately you have to maintain a 5-day 0 balance. So you can play those two in symphony. That'll help that days of liquidity metric as well. Reinforce it, so to speak. Absolutely.
So just speaking to that cash KPI, right? That was set by this board or of an LP board several years ago. And as we've moved into this as we're moving into this transition environment, and with your expertise, we violated that. It's been in yellow because that's an old metric. And Patrick has produced a set of 3 spreadsheets you just mentioned and measured more than just one metric. And when you look at those 3 metrics, we are in very good shape, as we just explained. And yet we're not changing that yet until we understand our credit, the facilities that we'll get as a part of the exit, right? Otherwise we'll be changing this too frequently. We want to settle that. I will also say that in our budget that we passed last fall, Patrick forecasted a cash that would violate that metric. So the forecast has been adjusted to a lower level of cash on hand than that metric specified. And yet that forecast has been beat most months. So I'm just trying to assure us that everyone that there is a method. There wasn't, this isn't really a mistake. We're very cognizant of it, and it's an attempt to save money on interest and utilize cash better than we had in the past. And I think Patrick and the finance team have been doing a great job at that. So
One other item, and thank you for that, Dan. One other item that I wanted to share is I haven't had the convenience to be able to go and look at United Power, for instance. As we're approaching exit, I am looking at United's 2024 performance to 2023. In that process, I looked at their pre-exit FIT rating. They were running with 4 days of cash before that exit. It still came out with, I believe it was a AA rating. And they're leveraging the exact same strategy, or were leveraging the exact same strategy as we're deploying here, of avoiding borrowing and avoiding that interest cost. Questions? I get behind the wheel.
So the next slide then. All right. On this slide, I just wanted to highlight that we have a 300% increase year to date on the number of interconnection applications that either include or solely for battery. So our battery incentivization, I think, is really paying off. It sort of kind of goes to Mr. Miravan's question about what are we doing to alleviate these red zones. Really, our members are adopting battery as a portion of their interconnection for their self-generation. Yeah. Yeah, Rachel, sorry, did you have a question on the finances?
No, just on that comment you just made, do we know the driver, like explicitly know the driver behind that increase? Are people citing, oh, it's your rebate program? Are people citing the salespeople are driving to it, us to it? Are people citing the red zones? Yeah, do we understand the why?
I'd love to say it's 100% based on all of our, the rebates we're given, but obviously it's just, it's gaining momentum as well. So it's maybe hard to split those apart a little bit. People do always say they appreciate the rebates and that's what made them do this, but you know, really hard to pull that part out. But I do have a solid feeling that the rebates are moving the needle pretty well.
Question. What, just in a nutshell, what is that policy? What is the rebate? What is the?
Yeah, it's $1,000 for a, what was it, for each battery bank. That's so we put in 2,000. We add a $500 bonus if you're in a red zone.
Joe.
Dan, has there been any pushback from people not wanting, because they have to agree to interconnect to get the rebate, correct?
It's the interconnection is going to have, I think what you're after is they have to agree to our control parameters.
Right.
And sometimes they don't want to, and if they don't want the rebate, that's fine. But for us to be able to capitalize on the pros of that battery and off our system, it has to work in a certain way. Some people want to do that, but others don't.
But if they don't agree to interconnect, they're not eligible for the rebate.
Everybody has to agree to interconnect that. Now, if they don't agree to wanting to implement those control parameters, they can opt not to do that. They can still interconnect and put their battery, but they don't get the rebate.
They don't, okay, thank you.
It doesn't require rooftop solar.
And in fact, love it. I mean, standalone, especially in the red zones, that's really helps us move the needle.
Any direct impact from the action that McLeod County is taking, without going down a rabbit hole? I mean, is the BESS moratorium going to directly impact our members' ability to move forward?
Not whatsoever. Okay. It's more targeted utility scale projects. Give that more, be more available.
What's BESS?
Battery energy storage.
Oh,
It's just battery. Yeah, sorry. Too many acronyms.
Any other questions on this slide?
Nice photo.
All right, that concludes dashboard.
So just going back to that comment about batteries and not using solar. Actually, batteries could be a huge solution to a problem that we face or are gonna face. And maybe that's a good way to put that out to the members, you know, how much it does help. Because you can spend, I don't know, $17,000 on batteries and get maybe more benefit out of it than spending $40,000 on solar and then an additional 17,000 on batteries.
Yeah, a lot of numbers to work through there, but.
Well, and I'm just throwing out throwing a wag at numbers, but
yeah,
that might be something that people don't realize that can really benefit them and all things involved in power.
Yeah, we have some really good documentation on holding their hand. Here's how you can work through some paybacks and how much value do you put on having uninterruptible power, those kind of things too.
Yeah.
On the, planning board, there's the appendix. And the grant tracking still shows the DOE, energy and grant by, but my understanding is that's been pulled, right? Is that correct?
The DOE, which one?
DOE Iron Horse Geothermal and Pagoda West Substation Transmission.
Yeah, that came after we pushed this out, so.
Can we just have just a brief description of what we were applying for and what happened to?
Yeah, we were applying for a very large, I think it was 20 megawatts, I have to go back and double check, geothermal project at our Iron Horse substation. We would have to partner and collaborate. There was be a full-on structure behind it. Capital partners, whatnot, try to figure out how to manage that part of it, but this would have been a substantial grant towards that process. It was not New Era, but Era grant. A little subtle difference there. Tri-State got New Era. And we got an email one day that says that instead of, anticipating, did you make it to the second round? It was just, we're done with the program altogether. And that also impacted a grant that town of Pagosa put in for, we were a secondary for the substation transmission line expansions.
Thank you, Dan.
So we're done with the dashboard. Is the attorney update you, Brandon, or?
It will be me. Matt has Public Utilities Commission hearings all week, so he won't be joining us, so we can do that.
Let's just keep moving through them.
Hey, I'm on if we need to talk about anything. We're not starting until 1 today.
Perfect. There you go. You do have a minute.
Okay, so why don't we, do I need to amend the agenda to move this up?
I think we just sort of said, are there any objections to reorganizing the agenda so that we can accommodate Matt's schedule?
Any objections? Okay, go ahead, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, and I think this can be pretty brief, just a few updates, and appreciate y'all working with me on the calendar. So starting with the FERC side, and this is sort of emblematic of how long these settlements take. The sleeving fee settlement has finally been certified. That happened on June 13th. The rate case at FERC remains in a settlement negotiation. There's no real update there. It just continues to be in settlement dialogues. I think the most meaningful update is Tri-State made its 5th CTP compliance filing. You'll recall that the prior ones have led to these appeals. United Power continues to protest those compliance filings and filed its most recent protest on June 12th, so last week. The debate continues to be over how the credit is calculated between whether it's total debt and other obligations or just based on long-term debt. So we're continuing to monitor that situation. Obviously, that situation could impact us as well. So that continues to be an item of dispute. At the Utilities Commission in Colorado, gave you the update last last meeting that the asset transfer application had been filed on May 23rd. It was subsequently noticed on June 3rd. And the way that that works is it's open for a notice period right now. Depending on what happens in that period, it'll dictate kind of what the next steps are in that case. So no real action on the appeals front. No major updates there. So I think that kind of covers FERC, Colorado PUC, and then the courts. But happy to take any questions. And I don't have anything specific for executive session either, if you guys are looking for time. But if there's a question that needs to be addressed in executive session, I'm happy to do it, of course.
Any questions for Matt? Go ahead, Tim.
I didn't quite hear or follow what you said about the PUC.
Yeah. So the way that works is an application is filed, the PUC then subsequently notices that application. That opens up an intervention window. And then once that intervention window closes, depending upon what happens within that, will determine, whether the case has to go to hearing, whether it doesn't have to go to hearing. But we won't know any of that until that window closes. That window is currently open until 30 days from June 3rd. So, July 2nd, 2025, give or take.
Okay. And what do you see as the timing? Tri-State's ERP, preferred ERP, when does that get finally decided at the PUC?
Yeah, so Tri-State has filed, their preferred portfolio, what they call an implementation report. That has a set of assets that they're proposing to acquire or develop. That is in the process of, that should be done, probably by the end of the summer. There is some dispute about their portfolio going on with the different interveners. And then that'll ultimately be taken up by the PUC in terms of what's selected. A lot of the dispute relates to the natural gas assets on the western slope in Moffett County. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth between Tri-State and interveners there. So that'll ultimately be teed up for a commission decision. And then the commission can approve that portfolio. They can modify that portfolio. In theory, they could deny that portfolio. So all of that will be transpiring over the next, call it 60 days or so, give or take, although those processes can stretch longer than that.
And just remind me, are we an intervener at all in this? I thought we were.
We are. And we have not been active in the portfolio development phase of the case, given that, the cut of all of the assets that are being brought on after LPEA would cut over.
So we're a single intervener, or are we with joint interveners?
Joint intervener with Mountain Parks.
And do you know if they're making any comment on this preferred portfolio?
No, it's been, staff of the commission, Sierra Club, Colorado Independent Energy Association, which is the independent power producer trade association, entities like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? All right, thank you.
All right.
Calling in from the closet.
Yeah, this is the background here is somewhere short of ideal, so apologies for that. But is there anything for executive session, or are we all right on that?
Anyone needed Matt for executive session? Okay, not that we know of. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so next we're going to go to board action agenda. Committee on Policies update. I'll say as the previous secretary, as you may remember, we actually had 2 meetings between the last board meeting because of Memorial Day, the way it fell. So we did not have any meetings between these 2 board meetings, and tentatively they're scheduled for July 7th. is the next COP meeting, but I think that probably will be a discussion between Chris and our new secretary. Any questions about committee on policies?
Why was that switched? Because Chris is out of town or?
I thought it was like too quick of a turnaround, I think, but for the new secretary.
Oh,
Yeah, that was sort of,
I remember it being pretty weird last year.
yeah, exactly. So just sort of kind of, we crossed a pretty big, not low hanging fruit off of our list by approving policy 102. This, and sort of like, now it's a good time to sort of let the new secretary get on its feet, get acclimatized to what direction we want to go policy wise. So.
Any other questions? All right, let's move over to the Finance and Audit Committee. Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. I know here, please. Okay, so the Finance and Audit Committee report is in board packet. I make one, at least one notation of a change here that Patrick referred to already. That report described financials that were preliminary that we saw at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Subsequent to that, the finals came out. So you should probably discount the first paragraph of that. And listen to what Patrick said. And I think new financials were sent out to all the board members as well. So the final corrected ones are there. So, I'd also take any questions people have on this. And if after that, there's a couple of items that were recommendations coming from the fact that I can go to, but I thought I'd open it for any questions first. Anyone has one? Go ahead, Joe.
Tim, getting back to what we talked about, why our cost of power went up so much. Without that charge, what would it have been? I mean, were we paying an extra $200,000 for power that last month, or do we know?
Yeah, we didn't discuss this in the fact because that investigation and cause was not known at that time. I think that's subsequent to the fact meeting. And so I would defer that to either Dan.
I was just wondering if you can put a number on that.
It's 200K higher.
It was 200.
Prior year was 54,000, so the budget was likely in that target range of exceedance for another 55,000 hours and
Yeah, I think we budgeted for a
little bit of a boost, so, yeah.
It is noteworthy that in March, we noticed there was this disparity between cost of power and revenue. The ratio didn't line up. And in April, it was similar, but we thought that might have been due to some of the effect of the rate increase that hit in July 1st. And subsequent to that, with this new information, it appears that that's evened out, that discrepancy has gone away by virtue of the fact that that cost of power went up due to the policy 115 effect.
Will we be facing that every month until the buyout now though?
Yeah.
We won't.
It's a true up once a year, right?
Yeah.
It's a true up.
annual.
Good, thank you.
Maybe at the exit.
Well, hopefully the policy
That's true. We've got to
nullifies it completely.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Sorry, I think Rachel had her hand up first, and I'll come back to you, Kirsten. Rachel?
Yeah, just a quick question, as we proceed for new folks. If we do have questions about, our people, can you remind me, are we, new folks and myself, can you remind me if we're allowed to mention the, contracting entity, or if we have to keep that, under wraps and just be vague about our questions?
As far as the PPA and board item 6B2, is that what we're talking about?
Or you talking about a member by name?
Nope, the PPA for that we're signing, I feel like we're not, sometimes we're allowed to say client customer names, sometimes we're not. So, yeah.
In this case, it's okay to say that what we need to do is sort of keep the financial metrics of it confidential as a market transaction, but who the counterparty is public.
Thank you.
Now I forgot. Okay, Dan, may I?
Sure.
Okay, the other thing that affects our power bill is our peak for the month. And how are we controlling that? I mean, are we doing better? I mean, we always do fabulous at it. Every once in a while we kind of, but are we doing a really good job? And is it easier now that we have more batteries?
Boy, there's a lot to unpack in there.
Yeah.
We do better in the wintertime than we do in the summertime. So we have a lot of electric thermal storage heat that is controlled. In the summertime, primarily we're leaning on our peak power charge and the time of use as passive rate indicator behavioral changes. So every EV that plugs in, we're seeing people intentionally, and we're helping them program it so it doesn't charge during those times. And so every one of it's I mean, I can write down how many EVs are missing or are off that. It's hard just to look at the raw data and say, given this profile, here's what been our profile. Otherwise, we can look program specific and come up with some metrics and say, yes, this is moving the needle, making a difference. But how many people chose not to cook their casserole at night? Maybe cook something beforehand. I don't have the insight into that real well. I wouldn't say there's not enough of a giant shift to really say that there's a big change from one year to the next, but it's not getting worse. And there's lots of other factors that are pushing things different directions as well. Sorry, I've waited your question completely there. Did I pass?
No. I think you got it. So can you remind us, please, what the demand, what that peak demand does for us, that we have 1/2 hour a month that can make or break us?
That's exactly right. So it's our highest peak for the month, especially for the new directors here. This is good information, is that when we're that's tri-state, yes. There's things in the news world that are there too, but specifically right now, just give the tri-state demand. We have demand charge of about $24 per kilowatt. And so at some point in the month, we're using more than any other point. They look at that and it's limited within the windows of 1 PM and 9 PM. So if we peak in the morning like we do sometimes, that gets sort of ignored. So between 1 and 9 are the core hours. Now, knowing our system, we very, very, very rarely peak between 1 and 4. So when we issue what are peak hours, we sort of say, don't worry about 1 to 4, you probably aren't, that's probably not gonna be peak anyway. So we really focus on that, or 4 PM to 9 PM, 5 to 10 kind of time frame for people. And so if we keep that every kilowatt, so look at a space heater, might be 1.5 kilowatts, that type of thing. A car could be charging at 10 kilowatts. And if Tri-State's charging us $24 a kilowatt, that's $240. So good to our membership if we can get and for every EV we say, stay out of that window, because the default behavior is going to be come home from work, plug it in at between 5 and 6, and it would absolutely be on during our meeting. So big lots to gain from the EV, and the batteries are programmed in a similar manner.
Just for perspective, what is a peak? How many kilowatts are we talking about when we peak?
Our peak is about 155 to 160, and we peak in the winter time, and we typically peak in the evening. Our right. In the summertime, we're more like 120. I'm sorry, megawatts.
Megawatts.
A factor of 1,000.
Just as an aside, that peak is listed in the performance statistics, the last page of our financial center. So you can see what that peak is.
So in the wintertime, 155,000 times 24, that's the portion of our bill that is due to that demand charge. Yeah, it's about 50% of our, roughly 50% of our bill.
And just one other comment that around the peak, we have our peak charge that we rolled out to residential customers. I think 20 maybe, in any event, that's not purely to avoid the demand charge of tri-state. It's the distribution demand peak as well. So it fulfills two purposes, right? It's trying to lower that cost for our members that we directly absorb versus a tri-state. So it has a double benefit in that respect.
We don't have to build our substations as big, our lines are big.
Any other questions? Yes, of course.
I noticed you guys looked at the 990 draft, which is very cool, and I would encourage all of us to take a look at it, because when it becomes finalized, it is open for public, what do they call it, public inspection. So it's one of those things that you want to get ahead of your members on and understand what's in it before it hits the street. And I assume we can, we get information from the FAC, or if we don't understand something of it, we can ask, we either come to a FAC or ask you guys.
Cool. FAC or Patrick.
Cool.
I'm gonna give a plug for the Google shared fact folders,
Right.
990, that's within there.
Yeah, all the background information goes into the FAC meeting, is available to the directors through the FAC folder. It's organized by month. Janelle's the reason we are organized in that regard. Well organized. Any other questions on the board? All right, so there are two recommendations that came out of the FAC meeting. Recommendations to the board. The FAC doesn't make decisions. We vote on recommendations that you bring to the board. So the first is that we were directed in the last month's board meeting by the board to re-review and provide a clean copy of the changes to policy 103 for this board. So FAC looked at it again, there were no changes that we thought needed to be made, and we put both clean or we requested and put into the board packet this month, both the clean and redline versions of policy 103. We did not change our recommendation from the May FAC. It remains. And to recap, FAC unanimously recommended that the board approve the adoption of the following change to section 2.C.4.C in policy 103. And we maintain that recommendation to the board today. And that change is that the CEO may make non-budgeted expenditures exceeding those set forth in section 2C4B, which is just prior to this one, on that policy, which in the judgment of the CEO are vital to effect unanticipated emergency or repairs in an amount not to exceed 20% of budgeted annual operating revenue patronage capital per fiscal year. So that change, just to remind us, puts a limit on what the CEO is authorized to spend in an emergency, whereas the current policy does not have that. So that's the recommendation, comes out of committee. It's a motion on the floor, and I believe we can call for a vote after any discussion. Go ahead, Jeff.
Tim, so that, I guess that's what, $22 million or something, that would be the.
Well, I think last year's revenue was 119. 119 million. So that'd be 23 million. It's designed to be a percentage, and there is previously we authorized the CEO to seek through CFC an emergency line of credit. That was around 17. So this was designed to have a little more room there, and it would keep up with inflation by being a percentage of the budget rather than a fixed number. Other questions, anyone? All right, so I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of this recommendation, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. And it looks like all but one, did you, well, let me ask if there's anyone opposed.
Yeah.
If Brad's opposed, anyone abstaining? So we have John's missing, Rachel voted for, so it's 10 to 1 0.
Yeah. Yes. And just for new directors, so under Robert's rules, when a committee returns a recommendation, that is sort of automatically treated as a standing motion with a second. So that's why we don't go through the motion and second with committee recommendations.
Okay. Okay, so the other one that came out of this was that the FAC was asked to review a power purchase agreement for hydropower at the Vallecito Dam. And the details of that, and I think you referred to this earlier, Graham, the details of that PPA are kept in confidence with the power provider. So pricing, things like that cannot be disclosed. We can disclose as we have in the resolution, which actually is that, I believe, is in the board packet. It's resolution 2025-09. It's a power purchase agreement for 10 years for the output of the Vallecito hydro project, as was presented in the executive session. So just to the extent possible, we can take questions on that. It's also a recommendation out of committee. So it's a motion on the floor. Does need a second before we vote. If anyone has questions that can be answered in open session, happy to do that. Go for that.
And who's that agreement with?
It's a Paragon Resources.
Ptarmigan.
Ptarmigan.
That's the project.
That's the name of the project, Ptarmigan. That currently provides power to Tri-State, that same entity. And now we'll provide it directly to LPEA.
And what was the complete purchase?
A little over 5, I think 5.8. Yeah, that should be in the board packet in terms of the agreement, I believe was in. Good.
Yeah, just a comment, this is like a great win. It's a great early win that represents some of our new flexibility and also the ability of the organization, specifically staff, to go find good stuff. So it's not huge, but it's meaningful. And I think it's a really cool local project that has really more broad reaching advantages than just good, clean, relatively firm power for LPEA. So there's really more to this from a community standpoint than just benefiting LPEA.
Kirsten?
Why isn't this under where all the other hydro is, or the feds? Why did this not?
Why isn't it part of WAPA?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, originally there was no hydropower on the dam, right? Yeah, so it wasn't built as a hydro project, it was built as an irrigation project. And I don't know if it's Ptarmigan's successor came along about 40 years after it was operation as dam. They sort of went around and found dams that were irrigation design, not electric design. That's
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, thank you. Rachel, I didn't see you. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, can you, I don't think I could find this in all the contract language. I was trying to understand the output between winter and summer. Does it stay consistent?
Yeah, the discussion around that, or the fact, and there is this is mostly firm power in the irrigation season. Outside of irrigation season, there is an ability in this contract to make a call for some additional power if it's available, mostly for resource adequacy. And that was another point I was going to make whenever I was finished with questions, was this includes the power and also the capacity aspect, which will be very beneficial as we move into the regional transmission organization. So, does that answer your question?
It does, thank
Sarah?
you.
Anyone else?
Joe, the ditto to what Ted said on great local project, and also this is something we couldn't have done had we stayed with Tri-State. And I just want the public out there to understand that this is why we're leaving Tri-State, so we can do these kind of deals.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
So over the years, having worked a lot in irrigation and other things related to both the projects up there, there's been a lot of complaints about reliability. Is
reliability
of all the infrastructure with the dams. Dam itself has come into question, all the inner workings of it. Is that a concern? Is that something that has been brought up?
Yeah, we're aware of what work needs to be done with the spillway. That is, they're not generating, we're not paying for it, is what it comes down to. So they're aware of that, we're aware of that. This is what we call a run of the river project. When it's running, we take it, and when it's not, we don't. That's not gonna be something that impacts the resource adequacy element of this. It's a known thing that any kind of plant has maintenance and they undergo it. Sometimes they come out under construction for a year and come back. Or, but when you were saying reliability, it has nothing to do with power reliability. Just be clear. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Relative percentage of how much this provides LPEA, how much power does?
I'd say 2%. Just by certain fact is when we ran the numbers. Yeah.
Okay, real small.
It's 19,000 megawatt hours.
Okay.
And we last year were 921,000 megawatt.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Kirsten?
Yeah, in our resource planning, do we give any demand credit for this? I know that's not what it's called.
Passive.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have certain requirements for winter months and summer months. The planning reserve margin of winter is higher, and so is our peak. And so winter fast is really important. So that's why we try to work something in here with them to say, hey, if they have 7 days before the beginning of the month to say, the snowpack's only at 10% of what it should be. We really don't want to release water. They can notify us that's just not available then. But if we have a good snow year, we've got some capacity. That way it gives us enough advance warning to go and procure additional capacity for the month that to be short.
Thank you.
One other quick side note, I guess, is that the capacity of water in Vicedo is relatively small compared to its drainage acceptance area. I think it's about 3 inches of total rainfall will fill Vicedo Lake. So, it's not a huge, it's not, we're not talking about something that's 36 million acre feet of Lake Powell. We're talking about 186,000 acre feet that's in Vicedo. So that winter resource is heavily dependent on the snow, but it's gonna be annual. And there could be years that we could get a lot of power generated during winter for that capacity. And on dry years, probably not gonna be available at all.
Usually in the springtime, they're trying to dump water out of there as fast as they can to make room for the flow that comes in. So if they see that happen, they'd be glad to release some in the winter time, but.
Very dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Great discussion. All right, all in favor of the recommendation to approve resolution 2025-09, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We got everybody? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining?
All right, and if I could reserve some time, just mention a couple of things.
Sure.
During executive session. If they're not budget.
That'd be great. And that's the goals.
Yeah, I think that's also their power supply preference, so. That is covered.
So that concludes the Finance and Audit Committee session. Thank you much. Back to you, Nicole.
Okay, so that concludes our board action agenda. The next thing we will do is move into executive session. I saw the person with lunch coming through. It's about 12:10 now. I don't know if she's ready for us or.
They're probably just about ready.
Yeah, I don't know, this maybe seems like a good time to grab our lunches, you know, and 10 minutes, grab lunch and get settled, and then we'll move into executive session. And so it is 12:11 now. Let's meet back at, let's go 12:25. Right?
Yep.
Back, we got our lunch. We are, we're gonna open the floor for a motion, to go into executive session. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss the following. Attorney update of FERC and related actions. B, power supply progress. C, real estate update. D, tri-state executive sessions brief. And E, fast track update.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to understand who's gonna be in the executive session in addition to the board.
In addition to the board, I will be, Elizabeth Howe, Patrick Berry, Amanda Anderson, Dan Farms, and Jerry, do you need to be in this or do you have something? I can keep myself. All right. We might have Jerry on call if we have a question for him that we need. Greg House. Oh, and Greg House, sorry, Greg House. And Janelle Thunstrom will also be there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so, anyone opposed? Do I need us to ask for ayes, or is that just kind of formulated?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Okay,
We always vote.
Yeah, we always vote.
okay, all in favor?
Alright.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Okay, we'll see you in executive session. Here we go. Okay, welcome back. It is 3:12 and we just wrapped up executive session. We do have an action resulting from that.
Make the motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we approve resolution 2025-10, resolution of necessity.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there some discussion? Maybe Graham, you can.
Yes,
Explain what it is.
this is a resolution of necessity that's been requested by our condemnation litigation council. It's in connection with a condemnation proceeding that this board authorized several years ago, and we've been in negotiations with the landowner for a long time, and we just need this to move to the next step of resolving this right of way matter.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's unanimous.
Yep. All right, and that brings us to our next agenda item, and that is reports, starting with the attorney report.
I just refer to my written report and take any questions. Do you have any questions?
Seeing none, ahead then to our director reports. Let me see, if you want to do that in a certain order or people,
Well, I could start, same as Graham's comments for Roundup, CREA and Western United, if there's any questions. Busy month.
maybe not. Okay, I have a question. So what's the process with you getting on the executive team at Western United?
So in August, they will vote, but I'm unopposed.
Wow.
So it'll be a vote at the board meeting and it'd be pretty much right then and there. So they've already sent out the email that here are the people, right?
Well, thank you, David, for stepping up.
Oh, appreciate it.
And David, then describe the rest. I mean, then there's just a upward cascade to
up to
other
presidents.
positions, right? So
Where it
once you're in, you're on the path to
As long as the members still wanna Still need to run.
Yep.
As long as the LPEA members want me on the board, then I'll be on the Western, hopefully be on the Western United Electric Board. And the progression of the executive.
Great.
Those are 1 year, 2 year terms.
No, 1 year free, they vote every year for it, but if you're already an incumbent, usually nobody runs against the incumbent. And you can't get kicked out. But if somebody wants to run for that.
But tradition is.
Traditions, that's the tradition.
Okay, so that was Roundup, CREA and Western United. No questions for David?
Do we get, if you make treasurer, do we get preferential? Inventory position?
No, we don't, unfortunately or fortunately. But appreciate the question.
David, just on as far as Roundup goes, do you put the financial thing?
Yes, yes, and so I'll be talking,
Structure.
right, I'll be talking and helping out our new directors, and it's, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
This is true. Thank you, and there you go.
Okay, so that just leaves Tri-State has a report out.
Yeah, my report to the package, I do have a couple things I wanted to highlight. The RTO update was, that they're having, Tri-State is having some trouble with timing of SPP because SPP is short staffed. So just something for us to kind of think about as we're moving forward is, okay, well, we might have to give ourselves more time. So there's a thought on that. There's for general education, there's an SPP congestion auction where basically you can sell back if you're not able to get your power through, and you can sell those congestion rights. Basin, who is a big seller to Tri-State, has perfected this, and so they can make a good amount of money on it. I don't think it's something we're gonna be making any money on, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe CREA or Guzman are in on some of this stuff. And most important, or the biggest impact, the balancing authority, Tri-State is under 9 balancing authorities. Wacom, which is one of their authorities, and I think is the one we would be under, decided there was too much generation coming from the Laramie River Station 3, and so shut it down, and the cost to Basin for that shutdown was millions. They had been in the process of backing it off, but but they instead tripped it, the unit, and they had to, and starting it back up was a big deal. So it was one of those, there was just too much power on the grid, and the balancing authority said stop, and it had to be that sudden. So again, all of these things are other things that as we get more and more into that buying and selling business, we need to be aware of. Oh yeah, this stuff happens. I'm just trying to get y'all a little up to speed on what's going on with that. And then the rest, I did want to mention that Tri-State is seeing the morning peak for several months. They may change what their peak hour times are. Right now, it's an afternoon one. I think it's going to be long after we're gone as far as for the Class A rates, but it's something to keep in mind, that you always have to be flexible about that. And the peak will move as either the weather changes or as the member habits change. And everything else is written down for you. There's some fabulous slides. I want you to pay attention to what's going on with DER. And so the distributed resources is now being reported to in the operations committee. They're counting it as part of their resource planning and going forward. And they've done a really great job of having to convince some pretty tough customers who are members of Tri-State of, no, this is a real thing. This isn't just, it's good to have batteries, and it's good to have distributed energy, and it's good to have net metering and stuff. They've had to show, see, this is the value to Tri-State. This is what we're able to bring on board. And I think that's a message that we can all learn to do better. So that's why I highlighted it here. Questions, answers, complaints? Talk to John about complaints. Oh, he's caught.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do we have any member or any board directors comments, concerns, anything they want to get on the floor before the mic is off?
Yeah, so county fairs are coming up real soon.
Yeah.
And we have not appointed anybody. I know, Archuleta's, I think, August 1 or actually the judging starts in January, at the end of July for the 4-H vote. So we do need to get appointed. I hope we're in time to do it for next month.
I mean, I think that's makes sense, like we've often done it, try to move it back up to June because that gives people time to make sure their schedules are set. It's sort of like, oh my goodness, everybody's got something else. I mean, I know a lot of people also have family commitments and other commitments at fair time that they gotta take care of fair things. I mean, I think it's reasonable to sort of, if people are ready to sort of.
Well, maybe if you can just put the request out there and we can vote on it in July. I know that John and Rachel have been doing it for the last couple of years. I know that we've all done it over in District 1. Dusty, you said that you'd be interested in doing that, so I think we could be set for Archuleta. I don't want to speak for those other two.
I think that probably makes sense to sort of kind of circulate interest amongst the board. When I saw what thank you for sharing the District 1 kind of communication about who had availability, or maybe just sort of as a whole board. People kind of raise their hand that way and we can have it so that we understand people have their calendars set, if we know that they've got time available for it. It's sort of last minute thing, and then we can vote on it.
And a reminder of the budget too. Would be
Yeah,
helpful.
we'll get the budget numbers to you, I guess.
Thank you, Kirsten. Go ahead.
So I don't mean to put you totally on the spot here, but I heard through the campaign and also previously that you were a shareholder of Canisto, which is one of our vendors, and I just wanted to clarify where you are with regards to that ownership share.
So I started that company in 2015 with Chris Sill, who you may or may not know. Anyway, I sold, or it might have been 2014, sold that out to him in 2016.
Okay.
So haven't had any interest in it, or really any interest in it at all. So
you can't take credit for the great installation?
no.
Okay.
Actually, to the solar fields in this county though, Canisto constructed. They didn't get the bid for the Southern U, but the company that got the bid did contract Canisto to build it. So that was about the time I was exiting.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. That's it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you, and this meeting is adjourned without needing a motion. So.
Yay. Yay.
You got